lot of sort of strange visual ideas. There's a link.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Ask that the clerk please read the sunshine notice.
This meeting is held pursuant to New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act. Adequate notice of this meeting was advertised on June 7, 2015, edition of the Trends, and was provided to the Star Ledger, Daily Record, and North Jersey Herald News on June 7, 2015. Adequate notice of this meeting was also posted on the municipal bulletin board, filed with the acting borough clerk, and provided that persons are entitled to requesting notification.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Frida?
Here.
Councilman O'Dowd?
Here.
Councilman Barrett?
Here.
Councilman Cavell?
Here.
Councilwoman Santi?
Here.
And Councilman Giantonio.
Here.
Great, thank you. This evening, we're convening a little bit early to hear a presentation from our JIF official, Frank Cavelli. And without any further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening to you all. Tonight we're going to conduct the Public Officials Risk Management Seminar. We'll try to wrap it up in about 40 minutes. Any questions along the way, please feel free, and I'm going to jump right in and move along. All right? This is a slide you've seen before. Can you turn off that light? Okay. You said it. Okay. We spend, and the statistics that we're citing here are the MEL. Remember that the Morris JIF is one of 19 regional joint insurance funds around the state, representing over 550 public entities. And we spend about $500 million on claims a year, with half of that being workers' comp, followed by liability, followed by property. A number of entities that you're familiar with, including the League of Municipalities and the MEL, have come together to form the New Jersey Safety Institute, and their mission is to build a safety culture in New Jersey through public awareness by providing information and education to both citizens and government officials. The Institute will also encourage a dialogue between all levels of government on safety issues and implement campaigns requiring coordination between government and the public. If you'd like to visit their website, they're on the web. It's a resource, it's a tool for your toolbox in terms of any kind of issues regarding safety. Besides myself as a resource to you on any safety questions, they have a volunteer staff that if you had anything that you'd like them to research, they can do that for you as well. Recently, Dan, I don't know if you received this here in the municipality. I think it was mailed to every elected officials here in the municipality, and that is a Community Safety Leadership Handbook. Is safety on your agenda? I think it came with the MEL annual report. If you don't have it now, it will be coming shortly. All right, shifting to national statistics and accidents. Accidents cost the United States as a nation in 2013 $753 billion, which represented 5.7% of gross national product, or roughly $24.39 per capita, almost $2,500 per capita. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of accidents. If we look at accident rates across the nation, deaths per 100,000 population, you'll see that we had a pretty healthy decrease between 1970 and the year 2000, but unfortunately you see an uptick between 2000 and 2011, and we're going to spend a little time talking about what might be driving those increases in accidents. Well, the good news is employee accident rates, deaths per 100,000, has steadily declined. You've heard me talk about how the JIF has reduced accidents at the municipal level and how we've been able to drive those numbers from approximately 8 lost time accidents per 100 employees. Remember, a lost time accident is someone out of work 8 days or longer, to numbers around 2 lost time accidents. So we've had a dramatic decrease. The nation has also seen that. All right? When we talk about the dangers of state and local government, I don't have to tell you they're among the most dangerous jobs. As I like to say, we put guns on people and send them out into the community. We have big red trucks that go screaming towards the fire, not away from the fire. We have big trucks loaded with salt and sand. We send them out on the worst nights of the year. We have a bunch of kids running around in the field, and we have volunteers that hopefully keep them from killing each other. It's what we do. We have a lot of exposure to what we do. Good evening, Mayor. Auto accident rates, deaths per 100,000 population, national statistic, 2013. We see, again, a steady decline between 1970 right through 2011. What do you think is driving those numbers? You guys know the answer to this. Safe for cars,
Seatbelts.
safe for cars, right? Seatbelts. And
DUI enforcement.
I was just going to say, DWI enforcement is the other, so you knew that. Now, if this chart went beyond 2011, again, unfortunately, bad news.
I think you're going
You'd
to
see this start to
texting
turn
and
off.
driving.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Pleasant.
Sorry. Go ahead. There. He brought you a cushy chair. Come back.
Tush, is that tender?
Yes, apparently.
You can't beat that, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry to
Exactly, Councilman. If we saw that table, we would see that there's actually been a deterioration or an uptick in accidents, and it's all due to distracted driving. The use of a phone while driving, even a hands-free phone, quadruples the risk of a crash. All right? Pedestrian fatalities by state, 2010 statistics, per 100,000 population. We see that New Jersey is 12th on the list with 1.58 deaths per 100,000 population, with Florida being our leader. Anybody know why Florida is our leader?
AIDS.
You all know why Florida is our leader, right? Okay. This is something that might startle you a little bit.
Old rare.
Home and community deaths per 100,000 population. Between 1970 and 1990, nice healthy reduction in deaths in our homes and in our communities. Steady uptake between 1990 and 2011 to where we're almost where we were over 40 years ago, 45 years ago. What do you think's driving that? We have an aging population, right? And they're living more independently, they're living at home, they're living in our community, right? And we also have a lot of them taking what?
Medication.
Prescription drugs. So we're doping them up and we're keeping them home. And then we want them to navigate around the community, around their homes and around the
While
community.
texting.
Right?
While texting.
While texting, if they're savvy enough to do that. Or have their grandkids do that, or their kids, whatever. Okay, look where our poisonings are between the year 2000 and 2011. Our poisonings have almost have a 300% increase. Opiate pain reliever overdose deaths, legal and illegal, through the roof, you know that. Fall downs, over twofold increase in an 11-year period. Those are pretty startling statistics. All right? Something that the MEL and the Safety Institute have put together, actually the state was involved in this as well, is a new video campaign, Smart Moves to Avoid Falling Down. It's something we're going to view at the Safety Committee here in Kinnelon. It's something that you can use in the community. You can post it on your website. It's something we can give to our resource officer to share with the schools. And hopefully this will be something to help people. You don't have to be old or young to avoid falling down and having accidents. We have a lot of people doing it. All right? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because you hear this when I give you the end report, all of the online training available through the MEL. Okay? And now we're going to get to the featured film this evening, which is Employment Practices Liability. And we're going to focus on two laws. Counselor, please feel free to jump in whenever you'd like. And the two laws we're going to focus on is the Law Against Discrimination, or LAD, and the Conscientious Employee Protection Act. And the Law Against Discrimination is actually an older law that dates back to 1945, signed into law by Walter E. Edge, in case you're on a game show and you need to know that piece of information. And the law up until 1990 had several revisions, but up until 1990 the law really focused on employment, housing, public accommodation, and contracts. After that, the law spent more time focusing on race, age, sex, disability, and sexual orientation. Again, a major amendment to the law in 1990 under the Florio administration, signed into law by Governor Florio, and the law took away there used to be a commission like we have for the EEOC that decided these cases, and now the amendment to the law in 1990 said we're going to use the court system to resolve, to serve as remedies in common law for this statute. The second thing is this law now introduced fee shifting. Fee shifting meaning that if the plaintiff was successful in any count against the employer was responsible for their fees. So you're used to a general liability claim, a fall down claim on a sidewalk. Claim settles for $10,000, you're used to the attorney getting a third, the plaintiff getting 2/3. In these types of cases, the attorneys can receive sums far in excess as the plaintiff. We had a case several years ago, and you probably know this case, where it was a discrimination case against a public employer, and the Joint Insurance Fund offered $50,000 to settle the case, and it was rejected by the plaintiff's counsel. And the case went to court, and the jury awarded the plaintiff $28,000. With fee shifting, the plaintiff's attorney initially submitted $700,000 of fee shifting, and the court awarded them $450,000. So the plaintiff got $28,000, and the attorneys got $450,000. And that's what we're talking about in these types of cases. Where do we see the most cases? In our uniformed personnel. If you had a paid fire department, and police is another area. All right? So the MEL has adopted some best practices and shares them with you as a recommendation that that you adopt a police promotional ordinance, that you retain an outside agency to interview candidates, and you are not a civil service community, so you might want to consider retaining an outside agency to conduct written tests if you were to make promotions. All right? Very watershed case when we talk about the law against discrimination was Teresa Lehman versus Toys R Us. Went to the Supreme Court with a ruling in 1993. Teresa Lehman worked for Toys R Us in Rochelle Park. And she had a supervisor that sexually harassed her. And she brought this to the attention of management, and management said that her supervisor was a good family man, and they said, we don't believe that he would be doing such things, and you need to figure out how to work together. And when she continually brought complaints, at one point they said, maybe you should transfer to a different department. She got frustrated, she resigned, she went to an attorney, she filed suit, and this case went through the Bergen County Superior Court, the appellate, and to the Supreme Court. And in the court's writings, the court wrote, the Supreme Court, that an employer is responsible for the sexual harassment committed by its supervisor unless it has adopted an effective anti-harassment program. And the court went on to write that a program should include policies prohibiting discrimination and harassment, that there should be a complaint structure, both formal and informal, that there should be training, mandatory for management, and training that is provided to all employees, and that the employer should have monitoring mechanisms and an unequivocal management commitment to no harassment in the workplace. That is exactly the program that the JIF requires you to follow. And since you've been a member of the Morris County JIF, we've worked with counsel, you have a policies and procedures manual, the training is conducted every 2 years here. We do it every even year, so we didn't do it in 2015, we last did it in 14, we'll do it again in 16. And in fact, when I give you the annual report and say to you, you have an approved loss control program, this is exactly what I'm talking about, that the JIF requires you to have so that you have the most favorable deductibles and co-insurance with respect to these types of cases. And later on, we'll talk a little bit about what the court wrote then and what the actuality of what has happened in case law since the court made this decision. All right? The court further wrote, we do not hold that the absence of such mechanisms automatically constitutes negligence, nor that the presence of such mechanisms demonstrates the absence of negligence. Well, I think counsel would agree with me. The second part of that statement is true. The first part of that statement, again, 22 years later, and a lot of case law has said if we don't have the training, the policies and procedures manual in place, and we can't demonstrate that we are active in that, the judge is going to say, you better settle this before you get in my courtroom because it's not going to be very friendly in here to you. Is that a fair statement, counsel?
Indeed.
So the Lehman decision extends to all harassment in the workplace based on an employee being a part of a protected class. Examples of a protected class are race, national origin, disability, and sexual orientation. The court wrote the complaint of conduct would not have occurred but for the employees being in a protected class and was severe or pervasive enough to make a reasonable person of that class believe that the conditions of employment are altered and the working environment is hostile or abusive. All right, that's the law against discrimination. Now we're going to talk for a minute about the Conscientious Employee Protection Act, or SEPA, or whistleblower, all the same law. This law, adopted in 1985 under the Kane administration, says that an employer shall not take any retaliatory action against an employee for focusing the spotlight on official activity that harms or potentially harms the general public. An employer shall not take any retaliatory action against an employee because the employee discloses an activity, policy, or practice that the employee reasonably believes is in violation of a law or is fraudulent or criminal, provides information to any public body conducting an investigation, hearing, or inquiry into the violation of law, or objects to or refuses to participate in any activity, policy, or practice which the employee reasonably believes is in violation of a law, is fraudulent, criminal, or is incompatible with a clear mandate of public policy concerning the public health. Now, under SEPA, fee shifting also applies. However, there's a very important distinction that you need to know, and that is the statute of limitations is 1 year. So the legislature gave these cases a 1-year statute of limitations. The employer must display a notice about SEPA, which you do at all of your facilities. An employee who institutes a SEPA action is deemed to have waived the right to sue under LAD and other similar acts for the same cause. We can't have double jeopardy, right? Why do you think the legislature put a statute of limitations in these types of claims? Don't answer, counsel, because you know the answer. Anybody have an idea?
Somebody's upset that they got let go.
Think about that you hire me to work in a DPW, and you hire me January of 2015. No, you hired me January of 1990. And shortly after I got here, I made the claim that I saw you guys dumping street sweepings into the wetlands. Okay, and I called the DEP and said they're doing that. And by the way, you weren't doing that. But be that as it may, the claim was investigated, you weren't doing it, and I went about my job. And now in the year 2015, I'm up for promotion. And Mark and I are both competing for the position. We have equal credentials, we've been here the same amount of time, same training, etc. And Mark gets the job and I don't get the job. And I say the reason you folks didn't give me the job was because I was a whistleblower. You retaliated against me. And you know what you're all going to say? I didn't even know you were a whistleblower. I didn't even know you took such action. Or if any point along the way after a whistleblower was a whistleblower and you had to take disciplinary action, every time you went to take it, somebody would say, you're doing this not because I did something wrong, but because you are retaliating against me. So there is a definitive statute of limitations of 1 year for someone to file a claim. Okay, that's important. There's going to be some interaction here. We're going to give you some actual cases to make some decisions on yourself. All right? So, we just talked about 2 laws, how they impact the public sector arena, and we talked about the fee shifting in particular and how it has driven cases and the cost of these cases. And it has led people like John Farmer, former New Jersey Attorney General, to say even cases with marginal value are not being presented by plaintiff's counsel as having substantial settlement value. Those who cannot remember history are condemned to repeat it. In case you need to know who said that, that was George Santanea in Life of Reason in 1905. All right, we have 10 case studies, and we're going to give you some facts of these cases, and we're going to see if you believe the public entity, given the facts that you're given, is liable or not liable. In the first case study, by the way, I will tell you the case afterward. The first case study, a policewoman alleges years of low-level sexual harassment consisting of sexually based jokes and slights. At issue is an employer responsible for low-level sexually based jokes and slights? And can incidents that occurred years before be presented to the jury? Is this a LAD or a SEPA case? LAD. You're off to the races. Okay. So, at issue is an employer responsible for low-level sexually based jokes and slights, and can incidents that occurred years before be presented to the jury? Do you think the public entity under those, and obviously you're missing an awful lot of facts, but under what you've heard, do you believe that this municipality is liable or not liable?
Liable.
With no hesitation, okay, you're right. And you may know this case, this was another very famous case. Mancini versus Teaneck, 2002, an employer can be responsible for sexually based jokes and slights if the employer lacks an effective anti-harassment program, which at the time Teaneck did not have, and incidents that occurred years before can be presented to the jury. Teaneck is not in our joint insurance fund system, by the way. They are self-funded. They lost every step of the way on this case. Superior, appellate, supreme.
Do we have an effective anti-harassment program?
Yes, because you follow the requirements set forth by the joint insurance fund for it. So they lost every step of the way. This case ended up costing over $4 million between what they had to pay her attorney and her, and what it cost the municipality to defend itself. They had to bond to pay for this.
Can I ask you what the program is?
Your policies and procedures manual and the training that we conduct with your employees every 2 years.
And you do that? Okay.
Do you need a copy of that manual?
No, I'm good.
It's light reading, right, Karen?
Yeah.
Well, is that in our, is that in our employee handbook? Is that what it's in?
Case study number 2. Board of Ed, by the way. A custodian failed to report an accident he caused with an employer-owned truck, a Board of Ed truck. He was suspended for 3 days. He alleged that his suspension was really retaliation for whistleblowing over the years on such issues as asbestos in the school building. The lawsuit was filed just under 1 year from the date of suspension. Is this case a LAD or a SEPA? SEPA. And that issue is the employer potentially liable for alleged retaliation that occurred more than 1 year after the last retaliation that could possibly be linked to whistleblowing?
No.
No.
Not if it's more than a year.
No?
No.
No?
More than 1 year.
Well, it says more than 1 year, but I thought the
Yeah,
first
yeah.
one said
Yeah, I
less
thought
than
the
a
first one said
Yeah.
under a year.
I know. They do that to confuse you. Because it says the lawsuit was filed just under 1 year from the date of the suspension.
Oh, okay.
Stick
It is
with your
more.
answer?
Mhm.
You're right. Oops. You're right. Okay? Quinaki versus Saddlebrook. This is a recent decision under SEPA. The suit must be filed within 1 year of the date of the last act that can possibly be held as retaliation. They get harder, by the way. We start with the easy ones. A detective alleges retaliation for objecting to the chief's decision
Where the gut is going opposite.
to shift resources from enforcing prostitution offenses to enforcement of narcotics-related offenses. A detective. Under consideration is, does SEPA protection extend to a police officer who publicly criticized a chief for exercising authority to allocate resources within the department, and can transfer from the detective bureau at the same rank and pay be considered retaliation? They get harder.
Logically, you'd say no,
No.
so the answer must be yes, according to Jim's logic.
Your logic is go against what your gut tells you?
Yep.
Say no.
Whatever works for you. What do you think?
Not live.
Not liable.
Not?
Not.
Not? SEPA is statutory law and supersedes departmental regulation. The transfer of an employee from this says a plum job in the detective bureau to another position is still retaliation, even at the same pay and title. I'll give you an example. You're in the detective bureau and you work 9 to 5 every day. You're a sergeant. I transfer you as a sergeant to the traffic bureau. And now you're the shift commander and you're working midnights. You feel that's the same job as what you had? No, particularly if you're tired of midnights. And you don't want to be on a rotating shift anymore. And only want to be called out as a detective when you need to be called out. Okay? A police lieutenant alleges retaliation for differing with the chief over an internal investigation years before. The supposed retaliation consisted of minor perceived slights. At issue is under SEPA, is a town liable for even minor perceived slights? Yes?
Yes.
2 yeses.
Yeah.
3,
Yes.
4.
No.
Even supposedly minor slights must be presented to the jury. This is a good one. A Jewish officer sued under LAD because of a series of minor comments and jokes over the years. In some cases, the officer participated in the give and take. At issue is under LAD is a town liable for minor jokes that even the appellate court deemed as the normal give and take of the daily workplace. I have a yes.
Yes.
Yes. You seem pretty universal on that, and you are correct. And by the way, the Supreme Court did not take kindly to the appellate court's statement of the normal give and take in the workplace, and wrote that the appellate court statement undervalues those stereotypic references and demeaning comments. So the Supreme Court kind of smacked at the appellate court in this case.
So this is not affected by whether or not they have an effective program in place, or if these people never reported it. It's all irrelevant.
Not irrelevant, but the cases that we're giving you
We're
are
just
presenting
determining
as
whether or not they're
facts.
liable. Okay.
Right. That show you that that you're not bulletproof because you have policies and procedures and because we conduct the training. And I'm also going to make a comment after we get through these, because I'm going to question you one other thing. In case I skipped number 6, because it had to do with a paid police department, a paid fire department. Case study number 7. The deputy police chief contended that he was passed over for promotion because he supported the mayor's opponent. At issue was the fact that the two had argued at a campaign event, and subsequently the mayor promoted a less senior officer as chief, sufficient to establish political retaliation. Jim, what's your gut say?
But the town's liable.
What do you think?
I'd say no.
You say no? Yes, no, yes? Yes?
There's other circumstances.
Do you notice a pattern here?
Yeah, we're wrong most of the time.
No, that wasn't the
You
pattern.
shouldn't talk when you go to work.
The pattern is that you can't always figure out, this is what I was going to say to you, you can't always figure out which way it's going to go. Besides it being very fact sensitive, it also has to do with the fact that the court has contradicted counsel itself and has made different determinations over the years. In this case, the court wrote that the plaintiff may not rest upon mere allegations and general denials or vague statements to survive summary judgment. This case never got beyond summary judgment. Now, maybe had it gone past summary judgment and facts were presented, the court could have had a different take. All right? An officer alleged that his transfer from the County Narcotics Task Force to the Patrol Division was in retaliation for his being the union representative. At issue is the town liable under SEPA for alleged retaliation against a union rep in a police department?
No.
One no. You're saying with the no? You're saying liable. So you're saying not liable, you're saying liable. Okay?
I think they're liable.
Anyone else?
Whenever the union's involved, you're liable.
Yeah,
Liable.
Liable?
Really? That's a weak union.
The court wrote, a statutory limiting principle is that the offensive activity must pose a threat of public harm, not merely private harm, or harm only to the aggrieved employee. Now, what if this case had been filed under LAD? A totally different outcome. But this was SEPA. And the court said, SEPA says it has to be in violation of public policy and harm the public. You're a union rep, that's a personal gain issue. Now, you might say you agree with them, but they might not rule this way tomorrow on something else. This is an interesting case and not far from here. A construction official was laid off when the town voted to hire the neighboring town to perform this function. In other words, a shared service. The official alleged that one of the council members violated the Local Ethics Act by voting on the consolidation because he was a builder active in the neighboring town. At issue is the town liable to reinstate its building inspector with back wages just because one council member may have had a technical conflict of interest?
Not liable.
I got a not liable on the table. Not liable?
No, I
Two not liables.
Yeah, why not?
Not
Three,
Not liable.
4,
No.
5.
One council
Liable.
member can't.
Somebody
5 to 1,
Not liable.
6 to 1.
Because you can't have one councilman buying the council.
Okay, I'm going to tell, before I show you the answer, the JIF fought this case. And a decision, municipality was found liable. Which council may say, normally in that kind of situation, the court may remand it back, if someone has a technical conflict, remand it back for a revote, right? It's a technical violation of open public meetings or anything else, but usually the remedy is corrective action, right? Bonanno versus Elmwood Park. Many cases have been lost because of simple procedural errors. Anytime someone loses their position, you can expect them to look for any excuse to overturn the action. You were right, but we didn't think you were going to be right.
No.
So the JIF fought the case and we lost. This is also in a Bergen County town, even closer to you than Elmwood Park. It should say a dispatcher, not a police officer. A dispatcher alleged gender discrimination and sexual harassment after her supervisor and several employees made caustic remarks when she could not continue to work during a difficult pregnancy. The supervisor also instituted an investigation to determine if the dispatcher misused sick time. At issue is the town liable even though the administrator, once he was made aware of the situation, took timely action when he became aware of the complaint. And actually, he punished the supervisor. So, this is a good case to end with. In this case, we're saying that somebody did the wrong thing. We did our training, we have our manual, and our employees still did the wrong thing. Our supervisor still did the wrong thing. When a complaint was made and the administrator investigated it, he took action. Are we liable?
No.
It still happened.
I got a yes and a no.
Right.
Yes.
We'll stick with those two.
Yes. It's going to be one of those.
Yep.
What's your gut telling you, Jim?
It's telling me yes.
Liable?
Yes.
Thank you.
Really?
They did everything
There is
they
a
could.
cut.
So Frank, all I've learned from this is that you really don't know what to do here.
Right.
and you're just-
You know, so
That's
what
right.
have you taught us
Be
tonight?
careful. We're going to summarize that. It's
Keep
on
your
one of
mouth
those
shut, Don't
slides.
say anything.
Bob Shannon is the administrator in Wyckoff, longtime administrator, good guy. In this case, Grosslinger versus Wyckoff, summary judgment was upheld because the town consistently implemented its anti-harassment policy and could demonstrate that they did that. So the takeaway from this case
There's your point.
is that what I kind of tried to lead you a little bit, and I said, you have your policies and procedures, but something still can happen. You don't control what the employees and the department heads do here all day. And they could make a mistake, or they could let their personal opinions and beliefs enter into something and mislead them. When you become aware of it, that's when the clock starts and you will be judged accordingly. And if you can demonstrate you have a consistent policy, there's a good chance, no guarantee, that we can survive it. Okay? So, I think you've all come to this conclusion. When it comes to employment practices liability, where's the line? Particularly in New Jersey.
It moves all the time.
It moves all the time.
It's in the sand.
All right? This is really a good one. In Lehman's versus Toys R Us, the court wrote, "Courtrooms are not the best place to prevent or remedy a hostile work environment. The most important tool is the education of both employees and employers. We think that providing employers with an incentive not only to provide voluntary compliance programs, but also to insist on effective enforcement of their programs will do much more to ensure that hostile work environment discrimination claims disappear from the workplace and the courtroom." What a great statement, right, Counselor? 1993. Are we anywhere close to that? We couldn't be farther from that mark. We've done everything we can to institute policies and procedures, and we're getting sued left and right, and we're losing more times than not. So that's a nice statement, but it's not reality. Okay, so as we just said, you need to have policies prohibiting discrimination and harassment. You do. You have to have a complaint structure, formal and informal. You do. Training must take place, and it does have to have monitoring mechanisms and unequivocal management commitment. Each employer must have a system to monitor compliance to make sure the complaint structure is trusted by the employees. Senior management must demonstrate an unequivocal commitment that is backed up by a consistent practice. In Wyckoff, they could back that up. All right? So your best line of defense is an experienced employment attorney and an experienced municipal attorney. Seek their advice before doing something. I don't think you have to insist. I know he does. Tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And watch what you say, especially in executive session and in electronic communications. Where does your text end up? I don't know. I don't know where your email ends up. I don't know where your text ends up. I learned a long time ago, write it as if I'm going to see it on the front page of the Bergen Record. Or the Daily Record. Whichever paper you prefer. Any questions? Okay. I thank you all.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
And that concludes the training.
Where do we access is it on the website what training is available? So for the fire companies or first aid squads or that kind of stuff?
Yes, there are training videos for them, and I would go one step further to say to you that I would be happy to go there one night. What I frequently do is I'll go one night, I'll talk about all of the coverages that JIF is providing them, let them give me all of the what-ifs that they like to give me, and then also say to them in return, I want you to watch this video, and we have a sign-in sheet, and I entertain any questions they have.
Very good.
So I offer that to the municipality as another way for us to demonstrate our commitment to non-discrimination in the workplace.
Does anybody else have any other questions for Frank while he's here this evening?
We had a meeting separate from this regarding our joint coordinating committees with our Board of Ed. And in there we discussed, only briefly, excuse me, a lease agreement that is still in draft form between the Board of Ed and the borough. And I had a question in regards to, on page 3 of that draft, regarding insurance. I'm losing my voice, sorry. How would JIF go about insuring an artificial turf field on Board of Ed property that the borough would be funding? Because it says here, the lessee or the borough will at its own expense, and so long as the lease shall be enforced, keep the turf field complex insured for fire and other casualties and good and reasonable insurance companies through insurance available to the lessee of the replacement value thereof, and shall name the lessor as an additional insured on policies. The lessee will, at its own cost and expense, keep the turf field complex in good and safe and secure condition, and the lessee shall conform to all municipal ordinances or laws affecting said premises. The lessee shall indemnify and save the lessor harmless from any loss, cost, damage, or expense, lawsuit, claim, judgment, or execution, including the reasonable cost of defending such claims arising out of any accident or other occurrence causing injury to any person or damage to any property, and due directly or indirectly to the use or occupancy of the land and premises by the lessee and its successors or assigns.
So in other words, by contract with the Board of Ed, it would be the municipality's responsibility to insure the field. So there's a property component here where if something destroyed the field, that they would be expecting the municipality's insurance to respond. And then to go one step further, as I'm listening to you, that the municipality is responsible for the liability of the field. And to defend the Board of Ed if someone were to sue against the field. Correct?
Okay, so the borough is liable.
It's our field.
Right. So the answer would be the JIF would honor that because the municipality has a contractual obligation.
Okay.
You're also funding the construction. So it's your money to build the field, and it's your responsibility to maintain the field, and it's your responsibility to insure it and then defend them if someone were to file suit.
Correct.
Council, I just said that the municipality, by contract, they have that obligation, JIF would honor that obligation.
Excuse me. Okay.
Anything else for Frank?
Did you need me to stay for the public portion on, for example, the Kinnelon animal shelter, if you wanted me to, based on the meeting, or you got that
I
one?
think we're good. Frank, actually, Dan will probably report on that, but I think we're okay with that.
And then we'll work on the fire department issue for your next meeting?
Yeah.
Mayor will work on the fire department issue for their next meeting?
I think that's as far as, you're talking about when we rent the facility.
Yeah. Is that all right? Okay. I never know why there's so many updates on this thing. Who's updating this? Okay. Then with that, I will bid you adieu,
Great. I do.
and I thank you all for your attention this evening.
Do you have any idea how long the fire company report is going to be?
I hope 10 minutes or less.
Do you have any idea
10
how
minutes.
long Mr. Burgess is?
He could be 15 minutes, but we could expedite him, really, but main goal is he's got to get obtained
He's got to get here.
in a second.
Okay, so
How are you?
But it is like a thousand.
Yeah, but it still does the same job.
Yeah, but you're a cowboy, you don't have to dead the license, nice to strike.
Certainly possible.
But it is a lot easier. Agreed. And thank you for accommodating.
Full house. Hope Karen gets back here full fast. Full this house.
Joe, do you have to leave? You have, what? So you have to leave.
Report, 7 times $250.
Frank, if you can just
I'm out of here.
keep moving.
Keep the show moving.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, this evening we have with us our planner, Joe Burgess from Burgess Associates, and Joe has another meeting that is looming for Montville, so we're going to ask him to.
Actually, can you sit at the head of the tip? You're far more important than me.
Just want to welcome again Mr. Burgess. He did an incredible job with the master plan review. It actually is included in your packet this evening, along with the letter that you presented to the planning board. I guess for purposes of informing the council of where COA is and where we're going, welcome. So,
Thank you. I'm here to discuss the topic no one in the state wants to talk about.
Just before we get going, Joe is here really to discuss being retained to assist us in the declaratory judgment action, which has to be filed between June 8th and July 8th. We often talk very specifically when we are enclosed about numbers, requirements, and strategies of doing that. In as much as we're not going to go into close because the agenda and the need to make the agenda flow a little bit. Joe, let's just limit to the contract conversation and maybe some general scope of the need to move that declaratory judgment forward.
Okay. As you saw from my letter, back in March, the Supreme Court had made a determination that COA, after 16 years of not being able to come up with a set of rules, regulations, and numbers that would pass constitutional muster, they declared that COA is dysfunctional, and consequently municipalities no longer will be filing their housing plans with COA, but they will be filing it with the courts. Instead, the courts are going to take over the entire process. Until that time, that either COA gets their act together or the legislature does something about the issue. I don't think either of those two propositions are likely, even though there is some noise now down in Trenton that that may happen. But until that happens, the courts are going to control the issues. And there's 2 or 3 things that you need to be aware of. One, is that although they're now telling municipalities that you have to file that declaratory judgment by July 8th of this year, if you want to retain your immunity from possible exclusionary lawsuits, and then following that, they would give you a period of time to prepare your housing element fair share plans. They haven't established the numbers, they haven't established the rules, and they haven't established the regulations yet. So this is obviously a very fluid process. There are 2 sets of numbers that are floating around the state at the moment. One was prepared by Bob Rochelle from Rutgers University. And to give you the sense of breadth of these numbers, as you saw from our memo, Bob has calculated that statewide, New Jersey needs about 52,000 affordable housing units to be built by 2024. The Fair Share Housing Center, who is the litigant in the entire matter here, they had hired David Kinsey, who prepared numbers on behalf of the Fair Share Housing Center. He estimated somewhat higher than Bob. He estimated 201,000 units of affordable housing are needed by 2025. We're not here to debate the merit of one number versus another. You know, when we get into the details another evening, I'll explain in some detail why I think Bob is much closer to the reality than David is. But suffice it to say, we have to prepare a declaratory judgment to make sure we continue to have immunity from exclusionary lawsuits. In order to do that, there's a number of things that need to be done, and I'll be working with your attorney to deal with that issue. That should not be a very complicated issue, because on the one hand, since you filed your last 3rd round housing plan in 2008, there hasn't been much going on here. So what we will have to file, prepare to file, is not a complicated process. But then following that, we will have until November 8th, unless they change the rules, to prepare a housing plan and file it with the state. We are obligated to file, when we file our declaratory judgment, we are obligated to notice the Fair Share Housing Center and the Builders Association. And when we prepare our housing plan, we'll have to file notice with those 2 entities. So suffice it to say, there will be outside entities looking over our shoulder every step of the way.
So you're aware, there's actually also another 20 or so people on Kinnelon's notice list, which is maintained on COA's website. So of course we've got that done, we've got the labels done, we're ready to serve that notice and serve a copy of the complaint when the complaint is done. The complaint will buy us at least 5 months of repose, as Joe said, through November, in which to get our Fair Share Housing Plan together. The Fair Share Housing Plan, with obviously the mayor's input, possible council input, is actually a document adopted by the planning board. It's an amendment to the master plan. Not a re-examination, a true amendment to the master plan. So there are public hearing requirements, there's notice requirements for all that. In all likelihood, I'll take care of the notice, or Joe and I will work together on that. But then that document, during that period of repose, will be done by the planning board. I say 5 months because none of us really think it's going to be 5 months, but we want to be prepared in the event it is, because right now we don't have any, there's no yardsticks, there's no standards. So really the period of time is 5 months after we're provided with some numbers. But my suggestion is, a lot of towns are moving briskly to get that plan prepared, and in fact, some are trying to prepare it even before they file, okay? Just to give a little bit
Yeah,
of...
that is not my recommendation for you. I think you're in a very good position. Bob Burchell's numbers are very good for you, they're very low, and just to give you a sense of what they are. He indicated that you have a prior round obligation going back to 1999 of 24 units, but then given that, he also acknowledges in his analysis that you're in the highlands, and most of your acreage is in the preservation area, and he indicates that you have a 0 actual buildable limit capacity, so that's good. Going forward to 2024, he indicates that you have a 1 unit obligation. Again, 97% of the towns in the preservation area. So for that reason and many others, his numbers are not far off the mark, and we can take issue with some of them. David Kinsey, to show you how far off the mark he is, says you have a 73 unit prior round obligation and a modest prospective need of 298 units. I defy anybody in this room to figure out where 298 units would actually be placed. And on top of that, if you assume that that would represent the 20% set aside of a development, that means you would see 1,500 additional housing units built in town, which
to generate the 300 affordable units.
So there is one additional issue that you should be aware of. Bob Burchell is being retained by many municipalities throughout the state to prepare slightly adjusted numbers. So his time frames are 100% the same as Kinsey's time frame. So when municipalities get before the courts, they'll easily be able to match apples to apples, because right now the time periods that they each look at are slightly off.
Joe, let me just interject on that. There's an expert who is going to be preparing numbers for probably 50, 60, 70 towns. One town I represent has already placed on the agenda retaining him. Retaining him would be I think the initial payment is like $1,000, because it's a great many towns. When I would ask for a proposal from that person, I would then run it by Joe, and of course ask his opinion about whether or not that's an expert we should retain. If it is, the most efficient way to do it is to do it in that overall report where he's going to be representing in excess of 50 towns at a time. And that's the gentleman Joe's discussing.
I just learned this today, so to update that, right now 106 municipalities have indicated they're going to participate, but they're concerned that once they actually ask for the check, some towns may back out. So consequently, they're going to ask for $2,000 to pay for that analysis. And it's a statewide analysis identifying the housing need number for every municipality in the state. However, only those municipalities that make that contribution will be able to use Bob in a court of law if somebody were to challenge his numbers. That's key, because since he's the one preparing the numbers and the one that most planners are going to be supporting, but since we have not prepared those numbers and done that analysis, if we're being deposed, we would be hard pressed to testify about all the underlying assumptions that Bob made to come up with his numbers. It's a small price to pay for that protection. In all likelihood, you will get a rebate, because we just don't know how many municipalities are in fact going to participate. But at the moment, the numbers appear to be 106. he will probably take about 60 days to prepare his numbers. And what everybody will then argue is that we need 5 months from that date to come up with your housing plan. So you can see where the process probably will stretch out a little bit. There's going to be an established, I'm trying to remember the name, Municipal Services Defense Housing Trust Fund agreement that is basically an all or nothing, take it or leave it agreement, because they don't want to get involved in negotiating individual contracts with every municipality. So there will be one agreement. I know the 3 lawyers who are actively involved in this have all vetted it, and from what I understand as of this morning, they're satisfied that it adequately protects each individual municipality. One question that often has come up in my discussions with my municipalities is, well, what happens if he offers a larger number than what his current numbers say for us? It really doesn't matter, because those are going to be the numbers that are before the court for acceptance or not. Whether you participate or not, that will be the number. It appears, because he's only tweaking it to go from 2024 to 2025, and at best the numbers are going to be slightly tweaked. So I wouldn't really worry too much about all of a sudden you go from 24 to 124. That just won't happen.
So one of the attorneys that has vetted this is Ed Buzak?
It's Ed Buzak, it's Jonathan Drill, and it's Jeff Serenian. I always call them the 3 amigos. They're the 3 lawyers that participated in the Supreme Court action back in what was heard in January. Ed represents the League of Municipalities. Jonathan represents a number of towns in the Hunterdon, Somerset areas, a group of 20, if I'm not mistaken. And Jeff Serenian represents many municipalities in the Monmouth Ocean area. So they're the 3 leading lawyers in this area.
Again, I've received those documents with regard to another community. My suggestion is that we get those at least into the hopper here. You're going to wind up retaining that expert, and having Joe be the day-to-day person. We go to the person doing the plan, the person assisting in the filing of the declaratory judgment action, which again we're down to 2 or 3 weeks to get done, which I think we can do by next week, but we're tight. The bigger picture will be over that 5-month horizon, which is likely to get extended and become a little bit more protracted. Sorry.
I'm not sure about next week, but one of the things you should be aware of, you are not obligated to vote to accept the declaratory judgment. It's really a legal document that as long as you direct your attorney to file it, he can file it.
That's already been done by resolution.
Oh, okay, good. That's another question that often comes up. Because of the very fluid nature of this, in terms of not so much the declaratory judgment for you in particular, but in terms of the preparation of the housing plan, because there's a lot of information that we need to prepare initially, but then as the summer proceeds and we find out what the courts are going to do with Burchell's document versus Kinsey's, the manner in which we prepare the plan may be continually adjusted, because what is going to happen, unfortunately, there are 15 judges that have been assigned for all the affordable housing cases and plans that they receive. Last time around for the 3rd round, 371 plans were filed. Presumably, at least that number of municipalities are going to file again. And as those 15 judges start reviewing them, the concern is that differing opinions might start to arrive on everybody's desk.
It's one judge per county, so you understand. It's 15 over the whole state, but it's divided 1 per county. Obviously, yours is in Morris. But Joe is correct. You could get very different decisions between the judge in Morris and the judge in Hunterdon.
Yeah, and now to get into the weeds just a little bit, part of the problem is that, if you recall from COA broke up the state into 6 regions. The way these judges are assigned, they overlap, their vicinages overlap some of those regions. So they started off complicating the matter before the first step is taken. And that's why I'm saying this is such a fluid process that we're going to have to deal with. So we put together a proposal. It's on an hourly rate. I put an initial upset figure because we just don't know what it will be in the end. But given the lack of complexity for you in particular, I think we're comfortable that the numbers are reasonable. And, we should be okay.
I've asked that a resolution be on the agenda for tonight, and Karen was nice enough to adjust the agenda just before we came in. For whenever we do vote on that, because it is urgent that Joe start this tomorrow, is not too much of an exaggeration.
You mentioned at the planning board that ultimately you thought that builder's remedy would be pretty remote, given the fact that we actually have such a small amount in the planning area. And I guess that assessment is pretty hard and fast, but it doesn't mean we can take steps really to protect the borough at this point in time.
And this is the way to protect the municipality. And as I told the planning board, there are some municipalities that are very much on Fair Share Housing Center's radar screen. They've at various conferences, they specifically mentioned Clinton Township and Huntington County. We're doing their, in fact, we've already had our public hearing on their housing plan. Upper Saddle River has been mentioned at a number of conferences by them, and a number of other municipalities. Kinnelon has never been mentioned. And because of the fact that you're overwhelmingly undevelopable, and your area where you are allowed to see some development is along Route 23 primarily, where housing just really doesn't make all that much sense. It would be, I'd be surprised if Fair Share Housing Center was looking at you at all. Having said that, I strongly suggest you still participate in the process to ensure you are protected.
One of the things that's included in the complaint is a recitation of our highland status. And of course, that's something we want. Not that it's unknown in Morris County, but that's something we want clearly written in front of a judge right from the beginning. That really is to a large extent what runs our ability to do much of anything.
Joe, you put together a proposal. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look at it or not. Okay. So if there's no other questions, I'd like to see if we can entertain some discussion. If not, ask for a motion to take action on the resolution 6115, which is authorizing the borough to retain the services of Burgess Associates Incorporated for rendering professional planning services for the borough of Kinnelon. And that resolution is in your packet. It's been distributed, I believe. So, comments, questions?
Will the filing of the plan end the lawsuit?
Now, filing of the plan should give you temporary immunity from any lawsuits. And then the plan gets vetted in a court. There'll be depositions taken, there'll be testimony. And then the court presumably will eventually certify your plan for you, and then you are protected for a period through either 2024 or 2025.
It may ultimately be that your plan is agreed with, it may not be agreed with, and may be tweaked. The court may appoint masters, the court may have an extraordinary amount of other discussion, but it all starts with the declaratory judgment complaint and our fair share housing plan component of the master plan.
Do you see this having to be litigated, especially for our town, given the Highlands? Do you think it's something that can be settled? Will they ever agree to our plan like this? Whatever it may turn out to be.
That may occur. One of the things that I seem to focus on, and not everybody agrees with me, but Fair Share Housing Center is actually a small firm. For them to be running around the state dealing with 370 or 400 different court actions all at once is hard to fathom. So I think they will likely choose the high-profile communities and those communities that they think should be doing more. I also think that given your character, the courts may turn around and say to someone like a Kinnelon, we'll give you 2 months to prepare your housing plan to try to ease their burden so they don't see 350 or 400 housing plans dumped on their laps all at once. They might try to spread it out a little bit.
This is a mess, I think,
That's the operative word.
technical term. I think that COA's intentions with court guidance has been somewhat muddy. And the fact that in the past Kinnelon would have been able to actually have receiving a relationship with, say, an inner city or urban environment where affordable housing, in fact, may have been greater received because of public transportation and some other things. But that's all gone away. So
Yeah, the one thing that worked, they got rid of.
Right.
Yes.
The one thing they worked, exactly. The one thing they worked, got rid of. Any other questions for Mr. Burgess? I just have one. In fact, we do move forward with retaining Mr. Burchell. That'll be a separate bill rendered by his firm.
Yes, actually, Jeff Serenian is the entity who everything is being funneled through. He's the one setting up a trust account for all that. So Rochelle and Rutgers is not negotiating or having contracts with 100 different municipalities.
And we should probably go on record that, it's not that we're opposed to affordable housing in Kinnelon, but ultimately we want to ensure that it's done in a very intelligent fashion that really meets the spirit of the original law, and I think that's the intent.
And in a way that doesn't adversely affect the municipality.
Exactly. Comments, questions? If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the borough to retain services of Burgess Associates.
I'll make the motion.
Your second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Frida?
Yes.
Councilman O'Barry?
Yeah.
Councilman Barrett?
Yes.
Councilman Clavel?
Yes.
Councilwoman Spenty?
Yes.
And Councilman Giantonio?
Yes.
Joe, thank you so much.
Joe, thanks.
My pleasure. Thank you for putting me on first.
We appreciate your help.
Double duty tonight.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. I'll be in touch.
We'll talk about it tomorrow. Thank you, Joe.
Next guest we have this evening is Mr. George Galini. Hopefully I've said that correctly, George.
Yes, perfect.
Just want to welcome you to our council work session, and the floor is yours.
Okay, well, again, thank you for having me in this evening, and what I'm here to talk about tonight is not as fun as affordable housing. So,
Not much is.
this is a tough man to beat there. But what I'm here to talk about tonight is the benefits program with the borough. So again, as you introduced me, I'm from the Hamilton Group. We're a full-service insurance agency located in Morris County. We're actually located in Cedar Knolls, and we provide benefits and insurance products through multiple companies and entities all throughout the state of New Jersey and some other states as well. I'm the director of our group benefits department. That's my specialty. Just a quick background on me, as you don't know me. Insurance is all I know. I've been doing it since school. I have 15 years of background on the carrier side, working with the insurance companies like Horizon, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United, and other companies like that. I started on the underwriting side, worked in actuarial, sales, and marketing, and then about 7 years ago I went to the consultant side, this side of the house. So now I'm not working for the carrier, I represent all the carriers. So my clients, they come to me for my expertise on underwriting, the product, the laws, which are changing daily today. So me talking to businesses and companies in the area, I don't know if you know even how I'm here, but I was prospecting, talking to Mr. Frida about his school and his employee benefits program, which is why I'm here today. So public sector municipality business is very unique. Your benefits are dictated by a CBA, a collective bargaining arrangement, which must be dealt with. And I understand that you were actually outside of the state health benefits program for a couple years, and have recently gone back into the state health benefits program. So state health benefits program, the benefits are mandated. You're by your CBA. Our proposal for the Hamilton Group for the borough is to protect you from the HIPAA privacy acts, talking to your employees, making sure benefits are administered correctly through the state plan, servicing the contract, watching the plan through the year, and also getting ready for next year and following year. Unfortunately, there's no multiple year guarantees in insurance. We do this every year. So every 9 months, we're looking and evaluating the experience and trying to determine where we go next. Most companies are getting what are called trend increases nowadays, which are about 9 to 10% rate increases, excuse me. I have clients getting much larger than that. What's our job? Let's evaluate the experience, see where benefits can be manipulated if so, and or enhanced to make sure that we have the right product for our employees. The other thing, my proposal to the borough is not just servicing the account, talking to your employees, making sure that their benefits are being administered correctly, but it's also, like I said, analyzing your data through the year, preparing you for next year, and when the renewal and that time of year comes into play, we will also market the group on your behalf as well. So we'll go to the marketplace, even though you're in the state health benefits program, we're on the private side for the last couple of years. There may be an opportunity, there may be a reason why you might want to entertain going back there. Maybe not, but a job as a broker, as a consultant, is to make sure that you have all the information so you can make an educated decision. So, hired by the borough, my first and foremost, obligation is to, gain the trust of the employees, make them feel comfortable with the Hamilton Group and myself, calling in, talking about benefits, and accessing their benefits, stuff like that. Unfortunately, like all the nice jargon we just heard about the housing, there's not a bunch of crazy laws with this, so I can't scare you with any of that, other than our benefit proposal here is to service your account for the year. It's obviously every year it comes up for renewal. At the end of the year, I'll supply you with your experience, what kind of exposures we have with your employees as far as frequency, touches, feels, any claim issues or anything like that. So I'll make this quicker. Does anybody have any questions for me?
We have, one of our collective bargaining agreements has a provision in it where, I don't know if Jim speak to you about it, where we do need a third-party administrator because we have a provision where if the state benefits don't provide equal to or better than the prior plan, we would make up the difference, and we've put a fund aside for that, but we need a TPA for that. Is that something that's
Well, the financial pieces for the servicing of the account only, any type of third-party administrative services, we can provide that as well. And I think what you're talking about is like a health reimbursement arrangement.
Yes.
Something in a benefit that doesn't match, and the
Correct.
borough's made a determination that they'll offset that cost, so there's no negative benefit to the employee.
correct?
Correct.
We went from the private
Correct.
plan to the
Correct.
to the state health benefit.
Very familiar with that, and yes, that can
And
accommodate that.
that's part of the proposal that you have here. Is that done on an hourly basis, a case basis, fee-wise?
Well, it's actually done on a per employee per month basis. If we're gonna
Okay.
set up, I would need to get a little bit more information on it, because if you think there's gonna be a lot of frequency, where there's gonna be a lot of these HRA arrangements where we're back and forth, then I would say you wanna hire a TPA and do that. If there's not, and heads are shaking already, and there's only a couple of them, then we can provide the services for you. You don't have to go out and actually pay a vendor a monthly charge, to either hold money and or tell you which money you need to do. I can provide you with the service of saying, here's the benefit in the CBA, here's the benefit under the state, here's where it was with Oxford, here's the difference, and here's, if there's a negative impact, here's what it is and the cost associated with it. That's not a problem.
Verify what we should or shouldn't pay to the
That's
employee.
correct. Right. Yeah, not always we're gonna pay, this is correct, and this is what the benefit is, and there is no additional monies that you need to be paid or distributed on that behalf.
So I think right now we have what, two?
Two in 6 months.
2 and 6 months.
Right.
And you're very familiar with the state plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought I gathered that, but I didn't, just want to make sure I understood what you're
So,
saying.
in the last, my history again, I used to work on the carrier side. I was actually at Oxford when they developed and created the state health benefit type program. So I'm familiar with the people who developed the plan. I was there, part of it. I'm familiar with the state health benefits package in the CBA and what needs to be done. So there's the whole guarantee issue letter that benefits must be administered. After, if we're awarded your business, what I would do is take both plans side by side, put them together. So if another issue comes up or a claim issue comes up, we can easily identify if there's a change, if something needs to be adjusted, and then report it back to you, and then whatever payment is to be made is made. So that's not a problem.
George, we typically appoint professionals at the beginning of the year, and I know this is
This is
probably an
unique.
annual fee. So would you be opposed to prorating based upon your fee outlined here for the next 6 months? Is that something you take into consideration, or is the fee the fee? I guess that's my question.
I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, the plan is up for renewal. I mean, the services we're going to provide, you know, I kind of looked at it from a month perspective. If there's only, you know, if you think there's not a lot of hand-holding there that's going to need to be done, you know, where I come and where I think my expertise is not only just going to be handling that, but preparing the borough for next year.
Right.
What's the renewal look like? What's the marketplace look like, and all of that? So if you're asking me if I need to adjust that, yeah, I guess the answer would be yes. If you're looking for us to prorate it, I can do that.
Well, I just want to be clear. I mean, if the term runs outside of the normal calendar year, just want to make sure the council is aware of that. Good news is we're not going to take action on you tonight.
Okay.
The bad news is that we're going to talk about you when you're not around.
I don't have a problem with that.
But I think that we've identified a need here, and I think anybody that's been doing insurance work for a while is pretty familiar with the Hamilton Group. You're a well-established firm, so.
We're 50+ years in Morris County, very well entrenched.
What questions do you have for us?
Just, you know, basic question or initial questions. You know, this is kind of, you know, quick meeting put together, but as far as employee satisfaction coming from the private plan, going back to the state, was it whistles and people being happy, applauding, or was there some apprehension going back to the plan?
I think our governor had something to do with that.
Okay.
Asking people to contribute, ultimately, I think was an employee incentive to look at maybe plans that were a little bit cheaper from a premium perspective, but still fulfill the obligation of the borough really to provide a good plan. And I think the stability of the rates that came through the health plan, state plan, I think was a little bit better than what we experienced with Oxford. I mean, we were looking at double-digit increases for a couple of years with Oxford, and we were actually in the middle of new contracts, so it came to the forefront.
Okay. The apprehension that did exist was addressed through the provision in the bargaining agreement that I alluded to, where we said we would cover the difference, or at least the contract, which I think there's one more year in that contract, 16, I believe it ends.
And we only have two issues right now.
Two.
That's the right word.
Two claims, if you want to call it claims.
Benefits are very important, and if somebody has an inkling that their benefit may be changed, challenged, taken back, of course there's going to be apprehension. The HRA is the most sound way to calm their fears and ease them in a transition like that.
And Oxford predicting 15% next year, and the subsidy issue being decided before the Supreme Court ultimately is going to be a driver as well in the market. So a couple things are coming into play there. So
I think your timing is good. January 1, with the Affordable Care Act here, you know, everybody's impacted on that. The insurance marketplace here in New Jersey, they put a 3% load on every group for the pricing of the Affordable Care Act. We're not even halfway through this year, and that number has already been determined that it's grossly misstated. And that, get ready, next year's increases, not including the average cost of trend, the terminology they use, but they're looking at 5 and 6% increase just for the Affordable Care Act piece. And even though we're at an election, you know, in the next year, people still don't know what's going to happen. There's carriers out there today doing stuff that I haven't seen before, where they're giving 17-month rates to try to drive people to stay with one carrier through the election, thinking something's going to change. I wish I knew the answer to that. You know, I'd have every municipality, but I don't. So
anything else?
that's it for me.
Any other questions from the council? Thank you. Well, George, thank you so much for putting the proposal together, and you'll be hearing from us.
If anybody else, if you need to contact me, to just leave cards here. Okay. All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving along, we have members of the fire company with us this evening to talk about tanker 33, which I understand has stopped pissing water on the roads of the borough. So
Didn't hurt your finger,
It
you know?
It didn't happen.
You guys can pull chairs closer if you think it's appropriate. So we have Mr. Alex Merlucci, Mr. Kevin Mowry,
Phil Bussey.
and Mr. Phil Bussey.
Okay, thank you for seeing us tonight. Thank you, we appreciate it. As you know, over the past 3 years, we've established the capital purchasing plan for the fire company and have projected it 5 years in the future. It's really done a lot for the fire company. It's allowed us to improve our fleet, our equipment, and better outfit our firefighters. One of the biggest pieces of each year in that capital plan is obviously the maintenance, replacement, and refurbishment of the fleet. So as you know, we just got 22 back from being refurbished, and the next big thing, which has come up repeatedly over the last few years, is Tanker 33. So I believe Kevin was here previously and had discussed the possibility of refurbishing and replacement, and we felt that having an open dialogue with the council would allow you to understand the due diligence and the process that we go through, and allow you to see into what all the options really are and make an educated decision on how we proceed with this project, and then in general on the rest of the vehicle refurbishment and or replacements that we have listed in the capital plan. So for Tanker 33, we've evaluated multiple vendors and multiple avenues of having the truck refurbished or replaced, and we've found consistently that the delta between the refurbishment and a full replacement is not that great. Based on the numbers that you have in front of you, the delta between a new truck and the refurbishment is about $75,000. We've included in the refurbishment price a 20% contingency, which is both recommended by most vendors and is based on our most recent experience with Engine 22. Just by nature of refurbishing a 20-year-old vehicle, they open it up and they find all kinds of things that there was no way to foresee. So what I tried to do here was lay out the scope of both projects, and then the other factors that we considered were the warranty, the useful life, and then obviously the cost. The scope of the refurbishment would include replacing the tank, the rear body of the vehicle, the full overhaul of the engine and transmission, the pump, and then numerous technology upgrades. The lowest price there was $324,482. And then the full replacement would include all of the same things of the refurbishment, but it would be a completely new vehicle, and that lowest price was $396,755. So we currently have in our 2014 capital plan that was approved in that year's budget $300,000, and our question to the council at this point is how do you feel that we should proceed? And again, I think we could evaluate this project, and in the 2015 capital plan, which has, I believe, been approved as well, we have included the next refurbishment, which is Engine 3. And maybe we discuss, should we do the same study there and determine how we proceed with, in the future, the next project.
Just for those of us that have not been on fire company before, what's the importance of a tanker, and how does that integrate into the fleet operations?
Kinnelon has very little usable hydrants throughout the borough.
No, fixing lake stuff.
Yeah. So we carry a majority of our water on wheels. Tanker 33 is our biggest vehicle that carries the most water. It carries 3,500 gallons of water. Your normal engine that we don't see in this town carries 500 gallons of water. So this is the big gulp, the big dog, whatever you want to call it, and it carries the folded tanks, which are portable pools that come off the vehicle, and we set up at an intersection, and when we run a shuttle that's filling the tanker at a hydrant or a static source such as a lake or reservoir, that vehicle drives around, comes up to the dump point, which is where you set up those pools, and dumps the water off through like 10-inch discharges off the side, and then another vehicle drops that water out and relays it to the fire. So this vehicle's basically the workhorse for our fleet when it comes to the water delivery system.
So currently, I just want to add one more thing. Currently, the tank is leaking. It has been leaking for years. I think 4 years ago we spent $5,000 to have the whole inside welded, and it's been leaking considerably over the past few months. It will leak down to a half a tank within 2 weeks. So,
Less than that.
Yeah,
What's about a week?
I believe that's a 1991 vehicle?
94.
94.
Yeah.
So we'd be paying for a 1994 vehicle to be
That's the big question.
That's the big question.
Despite the leaks, it
It's
is.
usable, but temporarily. We just
Yeah.
spent $2,000 2 weeks ago in order to have it welded one more time in hopes that it will get us through to either refurbishing it or replacing it.
The tank that's on there now is a stainless steel tank. Back in 1994, it was decided this was the best tank to put on this vehicle. The microbes in the water in this area eat the well. And we will constantly deal with this issue for the lifetime of this vehicle. That's why we put a poly tank in 22, which is a plastic tank.
I
You know,
believe
you're not-
even, when we spec 2, we even knew.
Yeah, yeah. When we built Tanker 2, a company 2, we put a poly tank in there. So that problem is no longer a problem. So if-
Whether we refurbish it or replace it, the vehicle will have a new poly tank in it, so it won't rust, and they come with a lifetime warranty.
The metal plate in your head's getting in the way, Ken.
no, the metal is down here.
No,
okay.
If you go for a purchase, for a replacement, to buy a new truck, is the other truck worth anything? Is that figured into the numbers?
That's not figured into these
Is it
numbers.
worth 10 grand or 100 grand or 4 grand or, I don't know.
There's some
Safely, I would say 50.
There's some safe numbers that go anywhere between 30 to 50.
So if we went with $30,000 as a minimum, you gotta knock that off the,
Right.
okay.
Right. And there's ways we can go about finding out those numbers, but again, that wasn't our main focus at this time. We wanted to bring this information to the table, and now we can go down that road and say, you know, you can sell this vehicle to a fire department in Iowa, right? And it'll be the best thing since sliced bread. You can sell them to different agencies that purchase them and send them overseas. So, yeah, there's another life for it.
Yeah. No, I just
But how
wonder
much-
numbers-wise, if, so the
75 becomes 45.
It
shrinks,
Exactly. Exactly.
But knock it down.
Exactly. And you know, if you go right with under option 2, under the warranty, you know, I'm not the smartest person, but there's your sales pitch right there. You know, your warranty on your body, your transmission, you're getting a brand new truck if you go that route. And like you said, 1994.
Is there a used market for these vehicles? Because you just said there was a used market. Are there any better vehicles on the market that might be useful to Kinnelon? I know like Butler bought their aerial ladder from the city. So
I'm not
That's
first on
I'm
that.
just curious.
It's a possibility. One of the things that's unique about Tanker 33 and Kinnelon is that Kinnelon is not flat. And when that truck was built, it was built so that we're not climbing. If you drove a regular tanker up Mountain Road, you'd be going up the hill at 5 miles an hour. And that truck is designed and it's geared so that it can go up the hill at 35 miles an hour, which is that 20 seconds, 30 seconds difference that it takes you makes a big difference.
So
But
you're saying-
it's an avenue that we can look into.
So what you're saying, it'd be hard to find a used vehicle, and say it were warranted and everything else refurbished, well, you're not gonna buy it from a junkyard, obviously, but it'd be hard to find one that was, had that unique characteristic for Kinnelon.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And not only the
They don't have them in Newark with the higher gears?
Kinnelon has gone to Newark and Jersey City
Yeah,
with that.
Oh, you're in
truck.
Newark, Kevin.
Yeah, that tanker's spent quite a bit of time. Edison. It's worked in a lot of cities. They don't, you know, when their water system goes down, a bunch of Morris County tankers go together and go and act as their water system. It's seen work down there. To go to Alex's point, 33 is a specialized vehicle from the front bumper to the rear. Everything about it is custom to Kinnelon. And there's another vehicle that's built identical to ours one town away because they liked all the due diligence that was done in 1992 and 3 to build that vehicle, that they were like, oh, there's the plans, we have the same town, okay.
Can we put
There
that
you
right
go.
on the border then?
No, actually, it's in worse shape than ours.
Sooner than ours.
Yes, yeah, ours is
I
sooner.
was hoping that was
Yeah.
newer.
The dump valves, which let the water out, are 10-inch. 90% of the tankers out there are going with 8-inch. We want 10-inch and bigger because it all comes down to timing when you move water. And I don't want to bore you with the formulas and all that stuff because you'll all be asleep in less than a minute. But time is of the essence when it comes to this vehicle.
If we were in fact to greenlight this, either tonight or next month, what's the process and how long to actually spec out the truck and build it and get it to where it needs to be? Because as you said, if tanker 33 is leaking pretty aggressively at this point in time, we may need to
What did we just
understand the
fix?
timelines.
Didn't we just fix it
22.
there?
22. No, that's an engine.
It's an engine.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I thought it had, didn't we fix something that was leaking?
Yeah, the fire company spent $2,000 to patch.
Patch this.
I have preliminary specs from 2 different manufacturers ready to go.
So now this one, the replacement truck is going to be the same
Wait, Jim, just,
specs
so
as that?
I want to hear what the time frame is now.
Oh.
So what is the time frame?
Delivery, anywhere between 12 and 14 months, if it was ordered tomorrow. And obviously throw in a couple quirks there, and it could be another month.
But through this process, we've thoroughly reviewed what we have and what we need going forward, whether it's a change or repeating what we have. So we're not behind the 8 ball from that perspective. Once we have the green light, we're able to prepare the documents that we need quickly to get the bid process or the state contract, however
Did
we
you
go
want
about
to, you
it.
started talking, I stopped you the other day so you could talk today, and I wouldn't know ahead of time, but the Galveston thing and or the state contract.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's,
you can speak to that.
you have 2 different, where the fire company's going, you have 3 different ways you can purchase a fire vehicle. You can do the traditional route and going out to bid, which you add at least 2 months to the process.
And 3% of this cost.
Right, 3% of the base cost that's on here. You can do the state bid. State bid is just the vehicle. Or you can do something like the Houston Galveston, which is another purchasing co-op based out of Texas. And that includes, which this current New Jersey state contract doesn't include, is the bond performance, transportation of the vehicle from wherever you purchase to here, your trips, because you know when you build one of these vehicles, it's not a vacation. Trust me, I've been out there. I've done this twice now. It's built into the cost of the vehicle somewhere that members of the organization go out, inspect the vehicle out there, down to the washers you use underneath the vehicle, and then when it's finished, you go out and inspect it so that if they have to change something, it's done at the factory, not here. So that's built into the Houston Galveston price. Once it's here, it goes through a rigorous check, and that's basically $20,000 of your bid that's not taken care of under the state contract. So you'd have to go out to bid again, right? Because there's a $16,000, I don't know all that stuff. So the Houston Galveston takes care of that, and it's at no cost to the borough. It's just an application fee, an application process that I'll go over with Councilman Barish, and it actually cost the salesman $2,000.
I know that Jim had a question. I'm sorry, Jim.
Sorry.
I just wanted to hear the time frame.
No, I remember when you were here last time, and I said to you, why don't we just buy a new one? This was the last truck, and you said, we can't get a truck to climb the hill as fast as this truck. And so is this going to be the same as this? Is it going to be built? Is it going to be built?
Oh, this one
will probably be faster.
Yeah, this one will be faster. With technology that's changed since 1991, 2, and 3, and 4 when this was built, the transmissions have changed, the gearing has changed, and the power plants have changed. Right now, 33 has a 468 horsepower, 65 horsepower Detroit Series 60 in it. This one would have a 550 horse. That has an, oh boy, I forget the number of the transmission. That now, Allison, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm trying to be specific here.
You're right.
But Allison,
big trans.
Allison has changed the technology in how they do their transmissions, that now you put this massive transmission behind it, and you have selectors on the shifter, which allow you to change your gear ratios as you go.
That makes sense.
Or yes, was also.
Can I ask you a question out of curiosity, and it's not really relevant to the decision, as you would know why, but how many times does a big unit like that get used in town? I know you use it for other places. I mean, it could be zero on a good year because you don't want fires.
Well, we roll every vehicle on every call.
Really? Okay.
Every piece of equipment is dispatched to every call, whether or not it gets on the road, depending, you have a CO alarm and there's no conditions. Do you run something like that on every call? You don't want that to be the wear and tear on that vehicle. It's not to say we don't want it on the road, but we use our own SOPs to determine why it goes out. If you have a house fire in our town, it's being used. You know, if you have a house fire and you're in an hydranted area, this will have, and 33 currently has a 1,500 gallon per minute pump. It can pump a hydrant or go into a relay to deliver water, you know, 2,000, 3,000 feet away. So it can serve in different capacities, if you would.
Just an aside, if you don't think we have house fires, take a ride along Cherry Tree Lane. Moon Shadow, you know, a couple of years ago, South Glen Road, and those unfortunately were structures that were lost. But you know, without equipment, you basically could have had issues with maybe surrounding structures and/or you know the safety of the firemen involved. But we're fortunate to have volunteers, unpaid volunteer firemen. We thank you for that. But I think this is going to require some discussion at the finance chair level, so that's why I just want to establish what the time frame is.
There is other ways to lower that price. When the manufacturer Pierce, where I work, is West Orange, we went out to bid and it came in at $865, way over our budget.
Was that a tanker though, or is that an
This was
engine?
an aerial, 100-foot aerial. We went to, this is how we got on the track, we went to HVAC, which is Houston Galveston. It came back at 800 or 820. We pre-bought the chassis, came down to 775. So there's like little things you can do to even bring that price even lower if you're so close.
So you're saying you can get it down at
I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee anything, but what we have learned coming to talk to you over the years is we don't want to lowball the number and come back a month later and say, hey, we need another $300,000 because it's happened. You know, I don't want to sit here and look bad. I don't want to waste your time, and you know.
So you are comfortable that we can get something for the old machine, minimum 30 grand or so,
Yes.
just when we're playing with numbers for our discussion purposes. Okay.
I'm going to ask that the finance chair and the committee take it under advisement, and if they have questions about the specs or anything else regarding the pricing, you know, we'll bring it back to the table next month, if that's okay.
Yeah, we appreciate it, and we want to keep this dialogue so that you can ask us questions and we can ask you questions, and we can make sure that we're moving forward together on this and then the next project. So we appreciate it.
Anybody else have any questions? I do have one last question. We just had a presentation by our joint insurance fund broker. So you have a bad ankle. You have a bad finger. You have a bad wrist. So is anything related to Kinnelon Fire Company? Because
Yours was.
Mine was, yeah.
You were plugging a hole.
I welded and it fell.
Well, no, thank you. Thank you again for volunteering.
Thank you.
Please be safe.
Thank you for your time.
You always submit too.
Bid? Oh, yes, I know, yes. I'll talk to John.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Should we just leave the chair?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
We're just going to take a 2-minute recess, if that's okay with everybody.
Thank you.
This was another one that wasn't necessary too. I had just gone into another one, and the police chiefs were very hot.
Well, I don't mind taking another consideration, I just want to create an expectation and a discussion that we're doing it. And that's the only thing. And Cliff, just, you're working with your committee on these ordinances, right? You guys together? Okay, so just, because we already have you know, tobacco sale prohibition. It's 19, right?
19 is the state.
But I think this is trying to encompass e-cigarettes and something like that.
Well, and also, other towns, this one says
So Billy
19.
with his haircut.
What's happening is some towns are going to 20 years old.
That was my thinking.
I just threw it out there, you guys put all the numbers.
I came across an article a couple of times, I think it burned county.
Yeah, the article's in there.
Raised it to 21 and included the e-cigarettes.
Yeah, and I might have a discussion, just,
It's
you
on my
know,
computer.
I think that, you know, enforcement becomes an issue and a couple other things.
Right.
You can talk
Just
about
want to sign
it. No,
it.
I went to New Jersey,
As I get
American
that
Legion,
information,
New
I
Jersey
don't-
Boys.
No, obviously I know, because I just didn't know what was going on.
I was being interviewed, and they were talking about changing the voting age. And I said,
I gave them information from
17 years old, I said, if we die in Vietnam, don't you think you deserve the right to vote?
Fire company.
And his old service guy, you know,
I gave
sergeant
them all that
looked at
because I
me and said,
researched that information.
couldn't agree with
kids'
you more.
information, I
Right.
had no idea.
So
But then
if we're
when
gonna allow people at 18
called me, the
to
secretary
buy
went,
cigarettes,
"How
you know,
Yeah.
not that that's an issue, but there's a personal accountability
Yeah,
issue.
so he's got
Oh, absolutely, and it's,
This
it's
one-
always a valid argument for saying it that way.
Really?
This one, police chief.
Oh, so you think everybody thought you did it?
Yeah, you transaction, you buy yourself
I
something
don't
like
know where they got this
Craigslist
information
or
from.
computer.
I'm wondering if they
That's
Googled
always
him,
like,
and they Googled the
as
wrong
a part
person.
of community
I
outreach,
care
your
for
police
scholars
chiefs,
and they find
police
it.
chiefs was in
They
Hillsdale.
know exactly.
Was
I
excited
thought
about
her, even his wife's name, I thought was
people
different. His name, they mentioned what she just goes under her nickname. I thought her name was Marnie.
have a police
It is,
officer
but
assist.
that might be a nickname.
It might be a
Who's
nickname.
also
Yeah, that
a
might be a nickname.
member of the public and provide
Okay.
value.
As soon
So
as I
that's
get it
what that
written
is.
down, I'm gonna, I'll give
Just
it
take
to
it out
you,
because
because we won't, I
No,
need for my
actually,
minutes.
I read it this way, and
I don't
we've
want
had
to
a
put the wrong
couple
thing in my peanut.
I agree.
people that
Yeah, I
are
got
meeting
kind
here
of-
at the,
Yes.
you know, borough
Right,
property.
Did you?
Because of, the fact that,
Yeah.
you know, they can't.
Just like you can imagine some young lady, some creeping over some woman's house because she's got TV
Yes, he
for
is.
sale.
He's a sweet
You
guy.
go walk around her house.
Oh, yeah, he is.
There's
He's
nothing
a
on
worker.
it.
Couple
We're
that
not making
that guy
decisions.
responds to
Let him
great
just film
decisions.
his pictures.
So,
Oh, yeah.
just there's some.
So anyway, that's why.
Crazy people out there.
So as far as the tobacco, just,
Yeah,
you guys can.
interestingly enough, this
All right,
goes in today's Star Ledger,
Um,
and it lists the towns that have raised it to 21. Now, what's interesting, I read the state
My father used to
statute.
say, I wake up every morning, I reach up, if I don't get wood, I get out of bed.
Prohibits
You got it.
the sale
I remember this when
of
Monsignor
tobacco
Ryan
products. It
So
doesn't
you
prohibit
got
the
it.
use.
I'm not
So
gonna.
so my question is, why would they?
Session, and the next item is mayor's report. And I just want to start off by talking about the election for one moment. I want to congratulate Bill and Carol, but I really want to take note of the fact that the election with the campaign material was, I think, more in line with what Kinnelon's about, Dan. I think that it was a positive campaign, at least on the information that was mailed out to the public, at least from your campaigns directly. So I want to thank you for that, because I know that after the last election was more contentious. So as we move forward as a community, I think that we acknowledge people's service, appreciate that, and go forward. A couple items for you this evening. We talked about briefly about the master plan being reviewed by the planning board, and interestingly enough, the public had no comment. So, for all the effort that was put forth, and I think it's a good plan. We put it out, we did all the communication pieces, but
You were
in there.
speechless.
Well, no, but you know what's in there, it's interesting, because fields are in there, transportation, and some of this is a wish list, community center for seniors. Will that ever happen in Kinnelon? Maybe, maybe not, but at least I think there was some acknowledgement of some of the focused items that may not have been highlighted in prior plans. You should be aware of the fact that Newtown was acquired a while ago, and we're going to have Marshalls. So Marshalls will be coming, and what is, I met actually with the owners of the complex, and what's
it going?
interesting is, right here. So this is Marty's shoes,
Yeah.
okay? Next to Marty's was the Sleepy's, that, and next to that was Positano's.
There's a bank in there somewhere, right?
And then we have Mandy's here. So what they're going to do is actually combine all these spaces, you can see, and basically take down the interior walls. So they're going to demise the walls interior.
Marty's is gone?
Marty's is gone. Okay.
Yeah.
So the facade of the building is not going to change at all.
PNC's leaving too.
PNC, and it was interesting, I found out that PNC actually is one of the highest deposited branches in this region. So you would think for a storefront operation that wouldn't be the case. So PNC is going to relocate elsewhere in the complex. The jeweler lease, I believe, has not been renewed.
Unfortunately,
and,
he was told it would be 5 months ago. Now the guy's scrambled.
Yeah.
He's got no place to live. It was
I've gotten a
nasty.
few emails about that myself.
From where?
Unfortunately.
Qatar's.
Qatar's was kind of led to believe he'd get renewed, and then
He
he
was
wasn't.
supposed to fix my watch and everything, so.
Well, that's what he threw out.
And the only change that's notable is really gonna be that there'll be a loading ramp in the back here with some grade changes. So loading dock will be in this area here. But, you know, I think that there's been some initial conversation about that road when you come off at the back of the complex there.
Facelift at all?
What's that?
A facelift of that building, or?
No, I think they're talking about keeping the facade basically the same. I think that there's not going to be a dramatic change to, you know, front of the building. It's just going to really mirror, I think, kind of what's there. So I think that what it may do is present some opportunity for some employment for some people in town, including maybe some of our high school students, which is encouraging. And I think that
When is he looking to come?
they've got to go through an architectural drawing, so it's going to take a little time here. But a couple of those stores have been empty for a while. Positano's close to it.
With that being said, remember they appealed their taxes because they weren't folded, did they get,
We're gonna talk about that later.
Yeah,
Have that.
okay, good.
So, Town is going through a change. I just thought that although it has not come before the planning board, you should be apprised of that. I think that we have been informed by the state of New Jersey that our grant of $160,000 has been approved for this is for Cakeout Road, I believe. So it's been deemed complete. So once again, I think we have had success in actually applying for various grants. So the project is moving forward. I think that Tom Brady has indicated that it's basically complete at this point in time.
We haven't been given the grant, we're just told our application is good.
Now, we're told that grant agreement is approved project in the amount of $160,000, so that's
Oh,
not
okay.
from
I
that.
didn't know if you meant it when you said it was complete, whether it was just deemed complete or we actually got the money.
No, the application's been deemed complete, not the project.
Right, so we don't know we're gonna get the grant yet.
This is saying we're gonna get the grant.
We are gonna get the grant,
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to.
We had a Realtor roundtable meeting with about 12 Realtors this afternoon, and it actually went pretty well. Adam was in attendance to talk about the website and how that's ultimately going to be a good tool for the Realtors, so I think it was a good meeting. We're going to develop 5 or 6 key points out of that conversation, but there's approximately 101 properties that are currently listed in Kinnelon. And the sales price is actually, average sales price is actually decreased somewhat from last year. I think we were at $704,000 last year, and right now we're just about $680,000. So I think that in talking to the realtors, I think they recognize the fact that we have a pretty special community, but they are competing with surrounding towns. And it dovetailed into this discussion about the zip code. If you put 07405 in, our demographics and information get commingled with our neighbor, which is of a concern. And as you know, we've talked about you know, seeing if we can make another appeal. I have a meeting with Congressman Friedenheisen on the 22nd of this month, and hopefully he'll have an update for us on whether or not we'll get our own zip code. And I think that's all I have this evening, so now we'll move on to our attorney's report. Mark.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing but matters to discuss in closed, although there may be a couple of occasions during committee reports where there's some things that we'll talk about together.
Can I ask you something on that Realtor meeting? When I was at the public safety meeting, did they quote a number of 120-something foreclosures going on in town now?
It was
Did I
narrowed
hear
down
right?
and
Did they-
went through the stuff that has already been sold, and it's now 58.
58, because they did throw a number of 100,
Yeah.
over 100 out at that meeting, but
Yes.
the real number's 58 foreclosures, because I just compared that to the number of listings, and it's
Yeah,
a lot.
It's still 50% of the listings.
Well, and we also wanted to touch base with them on the CCO, and also what they thought about the fact that we do have a property maintenance ordinance in town that they want to know the mechanics of how to, you know, get homes addressed a little more quickly during times that they're not receiving the proper attention.
When they have a listing next door, they want it cleaned up.
That's right.
Exactly. So it was all positive, and they had nothing but compliments. I did throw out the question, what else can we do as a governing body? And in general, they were just very complimentary of the town government. They think that we've made some progress and things are going in the right direction. So that's a credit to everybody. And we did even touch upon, property taxes and the fact that 18% is controlled by the municipality. To move the needle, not going to happen with us unless we do something really dramatic. So they were encouraged by the fact that we took efforts to really hold the line on taxes this year too. So just a lot of positive comments, and the meeting went on for about an hour and a half. I was looking for an hour, but it was.
They wanted to talk. It was nice.
And the website actually was once again just really well received. So. Okay, thank you, Mark. Moving on to recreation, Jim.
We talked a little. I went to a Camelot meeting today, and we appointed. I remember seeing two. I remember seeing Christy Baroud and what was the other one? Bernadette Farrar. I don't remember seeing Beverly.
Yeah, Beverly is not, and she's, I think, spoken to you, I think, about being appointed. She has some interest, so.
Yeah, I sent you her resume. I could send it again.
If in fact, I think everyone knows, our Right Reverend Beverly Sullivan, and if you're willing to make a recommendation to the mayor, I'm okay with that, Jim.
Yeah, I sent you her resume already, but you know her as well as I do. She's awesome, so.
Okay, so we'll put on for next meeting, Camelot appointment Beverly Sullivan.
And then,
unless there's any objection or comment.
if possible, maybe we could swear them in July. Three of them.
We can.
I just wanted to show them the mayor respect and that they're sworn.
They don't want to come in June.
I think Bernadette had a problem with June, and it's next week, and I want to give them a little time.
We'll point them into the swearing in later. Okay.
All right. I guess the rec committee, Melanie and John Whitehead interviewed the candidates for the field maintainer. I think we're ready to make a decision on who we recommend. I'd like to at least approve that tonight because it needs to start rolling forward, and I think we interviewed them both, and we thought Todd was our recommendation, and
back to the chair.
Well, I'll chip in. I was part of the committee that interviewed, and the whole committee felt that Todd would be the person that we would want to place in that position, and we'd like to do it right away if we can start him on Monday.
What's Todd's last name?
Good question.
Yeah, good question.
I know it's Todd.
And I don't have to listen to it.
Oh, from the DPW.
It's a scribble, isn't it?
Todd Viera?
I don't know.
Todd.
I only know the first name.
Todd Vigneri.
I knew it was a V.
Right, we did it.
Right.
I knew it was at the V.
I thought it was from DPW.
It's either Brian Struble or Todd Vigneri.
Right.
Those were the two candidates that interviewed for the job.
They
And it
both
was
did an
Todd
awesome
Vigneri.
job,
And the stipend is $3,000?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Adam was there as well.
If we get just off your reports, we can take action on it right now. Dan, if you want to make a motion to.
I make a motion that we place Todd Vigneri in a position as the field maintainer who can coordinate the whole job with Melanie.
And that's 3,000.
And that is.
With the stipend.
Okay. And
Is that going to be prorated for this year?
And he realizes that he has to coordinate this after hours at different times, have a borough assigned email, and he said that he would definitely be willing to do this and coordinate the lining, striping, and maintenance of the fields.
Steve, is that the question?
I wouldn't want to confuse that it's a stipend, that it's a separate check. It's got to go in his payroll, okay?
Correct.
Is it it's going to be prorated
Correct.
for the 7 months, 6.5 months left in the year, or does he expect the 3,000 for the balance
No,
of
it has
this
to
year?
be prorated.
Okay, I just want to, because I don't want a misunderstanding with the gentleman.
And it's not guaranteed every year. Is that what we had it as every year? It has to be reappointed?
Okay.
Has to be reappointed every year, and based on his performance.
Yeah, and this is all consented to by the union, and everybody's happy.
Correct.
And to Steve's point, you're sure that it's understood it's prorated? I mean, I don't know what if we.
No, it's not understood.
Okay.
So you let him know.
Yeah.
It's 3,000
It was
divided by
3,000 per annum,
24.
he knows, but I
He
don't
knows
know
it's
that he
3,000.
knows.
We didn't
Annual, but-
say that to him,
Right.
that's all.
Yeah, he's not gonna get 3,000 to start.
For 6
It's over
months.
Well-
6 months.
We know that, but
I'm
I'm
just
not
saying.
sure he knows that.
I will tell John.
Okay, so we have a motion to appoint a field maintainer.
I'll second.
Todd from the DPW.
I'll third it.
And I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have a field maintainer, hopefully. Go ahead, Jim, back to you.
Okay, and with that being said, I heard Dan mention Melanie's name in that. I think we should also talk about from a certain period to a certain period, he reports to Melanie to make sure that, you know, he's doing. I know Adam and I had just a brief conversation about this, but we can't have Todd all of a sudden say, okay, no, he needs to pave today. It has to be known by this council that he works to maintain the fields from.
And
you know,
John seemed pretty solid about
and
that.
he agreed, just for you guys to know that if there ever is an issue, that we're all on the same page, that his job from, let's say.
His
what would you
primary
say?
focus during the certain seasons is gonna be the fields. Because other time during that time, he can do
Plowing
whatever
and-
has to be
yeah.
done.
And we're maintaining the field equipment, he said, is very intense.
Here's the one issue we have just from an administrative perspective. The DPW committee is ultimately responsible for field maintenance, not the rec commission. So there would have to be
Right.
some reporting back to the DPW chair just to keep him apprised. So,
Correct. I mean, John was in the room when we had this discussion, so just, we're letting you guys know that
He was part of the interview process.
John was in agreement with it. We just want to make sure that if we walk out there and there's Todd doing something that's not field maintaining, we can question John on it.
Do we have any idea how much time he will need?
Well, it's gonna be him plus other guys, but Todd's gonna be the main planner.
Is it gonna be
You'll understand
full-time?
that when I give you this.
Is it gonna be a full-time job though?
Yes, oh yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Will there be like some sort of like log that he keeps so that we
Yes.
can, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I mean, he's still
just
gotta
to
be
make
part of the
sure, 'cause it's a
DPW in
new
the
position.
winter time when you need to plow
Yeah.
snow.
No, I mean, just for the field, so that we know going forward what needs to be done, and et cetera, just,
And with that being said, that's what this is.
Oh, okay.
This is going to be what our goal is for the Kinnelon Borough fields. We brought a couple people out in the past, Land Tech. We brought another group of gentlemen that said they wanted to give us an idea of what we need to do to our fields. Needless to say, none of them have gotten back to us. So now we used our free guy, Andrew Shuckers, and he went blade of grass by blade of grass through every field in town, and now that's what this is. And the Borough of Kinnelon athletic fields are suffering from years of overuse, as we all know, and under-maintained. So what this is here, the amount of use of each field cannot tolerate the amount of volume that we do in these fields. The following factors have affected the health of the turf, and when I say turf, I mean grass. So from this point forward, the word turf means grass. Lack of rain, ability to irrigate the grounds, and extreme cold winter. Just had a real hard, lot of stuff going on with the field. The municipal fields, which is the fields that are back here, behind Town Hall, muni fields. These fields are being used by 200 players and coaches per night. That's 6,500 spikes ripping and tearing into turf every night. What has to be done? What has been done, I'm sorry. The recent light pole removal will now give us the ability to rotate the practice fields. The fields were partially aerated. They need to be aerated a lot more than they were. They've only been aerated once this year. So in our plan, you'll see that they have to be more aerated. Okay, what will be done? Irrigation, as you know, we've approved and is going to be brought down there. That's happening on June 29th. They're going to start with the sprinkler systems down there. Pesticides and fertilizers need to be watered in. We're going to use until the irrigation is in. We're going to have to rely on rain, but as soon as that, or manual irrigation. So as soon as that comes, we'll start working on that. What we need to do in the short term, the areas have young seedlings coming up. must be fertilized immediately to push further growth. The field should be closed immediately and also be mowed 2 to 3 times per week, only removing more than 1/3 of the height of the plant. When I say the field should be closed immediately, that's something we need to talk about. We did reach out to Kinnelon High School just to say, hey, is there an opportunity we can use your practice field, which is the field to the left of the varsity field, and move football and lacrosse over there for a year. They said, you know, they think it can work, they just have to get the approval from the Board of Ed and the superintendent.
Have they ever thought about maybe reconfiguring those practice fields to create maybe some more practice fields in there?
Down here?
No, over
Yeah,
there.
Melanie seemed to think that they didn't really have them well
I
oriented.
mean, if there's.
Yeah, we talked to them about that. We would obviously spread out what they say in certain sports. For instance, spring when there's lacrosse, there's track, they do shot put over there, they do javelin over there, and so there is a little bit more to it than we know about as far as like saying, well, look at this grass, but there is stuff going on there, especially the shot put and the javelin. They don't want them on the game field, you know. So that's what they use. That's what that thing looks like, a backstop. It looks like a backstop back there for baseball. It's not. That's where they throw the javelin from, and Hammer and all his friends. So all that stuff is utilized there. Yeah, there's a hammer toss or something, they tell me.
We should have made Melanie the field maintainer.
Yeah. I tell you, she's very excited about that. I mean,
She wrote this, right?
Yeah. Practice fields, rocks on the fields are a direct result of a man-made topsoil that was brought in. This type of soil is made with recycled materials, and once the soil's fine particles have migrated away, you are left with larger products such as glass and large rocks. The glass is found is consistent with this type of man-made soil and is not a result of parents or anybody abusing the fields or leaving stuff there. But the aeration and hand picking of the larger pieces of turf will result in a playable field, as well as significant rest time will also help the field. John White had mentioned that there's a machine that can go down 6 inches, lift all the rocks and debris out of there, but that would actually eliminate any grass or anything that was growing down there. But if we are going to close the field for a year, to me it's a no-brainer. We should be getting that rock and glass out of there. This field needs fertilization, of course, as we know, how to mow the fields. This is going to be gone over with Todd, and we fertilize the entire grass area with stuff that we don't really understand or need to know about. Half a pound of nitrogen per square foot of plus everything else. Continue to mow once the fertilizer starts. We don't need to know that. Where no grass has come up, the aeration should be run through those areas 6 to 7 times to open up the soil. They should be seeded at that time also. No aeration in the growth area at this time. Window has been missed, so the seedlings are coming up. The game field is in relatively good shape. The center area and the sidelines areas need to be aerated and seeded. It is not necessary to sod these areas at this time. The aerate the ceilings, saying 8 to 10 passes in each area. This may result in an area being fluffed up. So you'll see when we were down there, May, I remember there was a little bit in the practice field. She said the continuing aeration, actually, it's just compacted. So once you aerate, it'll puff it up, or fluff it up is the word they used. And we're talking about, you know, closing that field for a year. I mean, it has to be, they're still going to be able to use the game field, but they're not going to be able to practice on the practice field. It's going to go over big. Other immediate concerns at the municipal field, she looked at everything. There's poison ivy on the east side of the field fence. There's one of the more impressive poison ivies they've seen. It needs to be immediately treated and removed for safety and the welfare of everyone. Weed control, currently much of the green on the fields are weeds. Clover, broadleaf plantation, not weed. The problem is if we start killing all the weeds, we have no green down there. So the recommendation is eliminate some unless we're going to close the field for a year, and then they can eliminate all and start over. Insects, the municipal field at this time has no signs of any infest or grub infestation. The drainage ditch that goes around the borough field, I made a call today to the Morris County Mosquito Commission, and I wanted to say to them, hey, it's stagnant water, because there's a rumor out there that they don't need DEP permits if they get rid of stagnant water, so maybe we can jump in with them and see if they can alleviate some of the, you know, all the roots that have grown into that and open it up. So I'll see what they say tomorrow when they call. Recommendation for option 1. Move all practices for both the 2015 and 2016 lacrosse to an alternate location, which would mean we would need to purchase, or not purchase, rent some lighting for them over there. As you know, most of our rec practices start at 6 o'clock, so being no light over on the practice field, we'd have to consider that. The games will be played over here. So the game field would be back on our game field. We're going to check with local towns or surrounding towns to utilize their available fields, which I don't think will work. Rent Morris County turf fields in Morristown. I see that being a problem. You know, although we know it's not a popular choice, you know, it's going to help the field. Obviously, we can't fix that problem down there without closing the field. Option number 2 is realign the practice fields in a different layout on that field, and maybe prep half at one time and then let them practice on one small piece, and then close the other one and let them practice on the other small piece, and no cleats can be worn at that time during practice to protect the new growth of the field. Now we're moving on to KRP. We have a very serious problem over there called grubs. We treat it for grubs, and it ends up we have of course, a very rare white grub. So if you go over to that field, it looks like it's like knots of grass, and it's not. White grubs go under the ground and they eat the roots of the grass, and it forces the grass to rise. So the entire area is now infested with white grubs.
Please tell me they're not endangered.
No.
Okay.
They will be soon over there. But, and the problem with the white grubs is here comes the skunks, the crows, and the squirrels, and now they're eating the grubs and the grass, and now it's now a mess. So, yes. So we're now putting in a second application of a different type of insecticide called Dilux, which eliminates the remaining grubs. It needs to be applied properly and watered in the following and labeled directions. What needs to be done is the insecticide, after the second treatment takes effect, the following needs to be completed as soon as possible. Aeration, open up the holes for new seed, a tall ficus blend of seed. We can't put the ryegrass because that won't survive without water. What is it called?
Fescue.
Fescue?
Yeah.
I have someone do that for me. And I have turf in my preschool. Aeration must be consistently done in grass-covered areas to relieve compaction. The current bumpiness of the field is a direct result of lack or inconsistent aeration and seeding.
Just a question on the Dilux. Is
Yep.
that going to cause any problem for kids playing on it? Do they have to stay off of it for a while?
I don't know. I mean, obviously, we would check into that. We'd have to hire someone
Yeah.
that's doing that, so they would have a license permit and tell us all the information. It sounds kind of scary, Dilux.
Yeah, it does.
Right. But we'll definitely find out. An irrigation should be installed at KRP. That's something that would be very expensive, and we're going to get you prices on that, so we're going to look into that. My thought is and that's the next question. You know, the entire area would have to have irrigation, and I think we have a well over there, right? Yeah, so we'd have to see what, if it can handle, the well can even handle it, so. The sewer, yeah, so we're gonna look into that. That's something that's a wish list, we're gonna still research it and find out. The facility itself, as we know, Mayor, we went there the other day, all the doors need to be repainted. The paint on the doors are all chalky, so kids are starting to write in stuff like, you know, Johnny was here and all that stuff. All the eaves around the building are all fell off and they're a mess as well, so that has to be repaired. Weed control, similar to the municipal fields, weed control and seeding has to be put in the schedule. We have a list here of when everything needs to be done, so that'll be given to Todd. It tells you, you know, early in May what to do, what to aerate, what to seed, so we're going to be following that. Cracks on the basketball court have to be filled as soon as possible. The scoreboard, the death of me scoreboard, is 250 feet away from the building. We got a price from the company that moved the pole down here. They told us it's $5,000 to put electric from the building underground over to the scoreboard. So we're going to go a different avenue. We have an electrician that said he'll do the work if we buy the parts, and we have a guy in town that owns, the guy that's going to do the irrigation down here said he would dig the trench, so we will get that rolling as soon as possible.
He's got a ditch switch, right?
Yeah, he's got a ditch switch, yeah.
Will basketball courts be part of Todd's assignment?
Yeah. I mean, right now it's way too much for one guy, and John knows that, so he's going to put a couple guys out there. But what Todd's assignment's going to be is to get this and then come up with a game plan with Melanie and us and decide what's a priority, what has to be done, and making sure that the maintenance guidelines, which is fertilizing at certain times, seeding and aerating. Aerating is huge and is not being done. So now there's going to be.
We have an expensive machine.
And we have an expensive machine,
Right.
so it's going to be done. And
he's
there's going to be accountability now.
classes too?
Good.
Well, not now.
Not now, okay.
No, Andy
They
has
could
his
start
classes.
January.
Okay.
Hey Jim, just real quick while I'm thinking of it with the ditch witch, even though it's casual and municipal stuff, make sure they call 800-DIG.
Yep.
We were just talking about that this
Yeah, call
morning.
before you dig. I was
Somebody
thinking
actually
the same
moved their
thing.
mailbox from one side to the other. I think we were talking about it up on
Yeah.
White Birch,
On White Birch.
and hit a gas line, just
Yeah.
moving the mailbox.
And they didn't just move the mailbox, they didn't call 1-800-DIG, they came out and fined them $5,000. The homeowner.
Yeah.
And he doesn't live there, he's divorced, he was doing it for his
Still.
ex.
So much for alimony.
I give her name and leave. So the soccer field at Boot Ave, the facts, the goal area and areas under portable fence and sandbags are dead. Not a big deal, it died last year, it came back after they removed all that stuff. They need to be aerated 8 to 10 times. At least 1 to 2 passes to help relieve compaction.
The machine's gonna be running 24 hours a day.
Yeah, and it should be, I mean, for now, until we get it all rolling, but, other facility needs, the field clay on those fields need to be turned. Again, not a priority right now, because baseball's not until the spring again. Cracks in the tennis courts should be filled, otherwise they're gonna get worse with the winter. The benches that we purchased last fall still aren't together and need to be installed and put together. Building shows some deterioration.
Where are they?
They're in the DPW building.
But DPW building's been empty, so where are they?
Yeah, probably in the
Probably in a
shed.
trailer.
Trailer or something.
Todd's got his hands full.
Yeah. Again, this is just, you know, something that he's gotta put priorities to and decide how it gets done. It's not Todd alone, but Todd's gonna be overseeing these projects.
He's coordinating.
And when he has a guy saying, you know, put those benches together and, you know, but we'll see. Building shows deterioration at the Boot Ave field. Plans for the building maintenance must be developed. The message board on the tennis courts is falling down. We need to decide if that's coming down or staying up. Garage doors housing all the baseball equipment and the quad needs to be replaced. crossbars need to be installed on the new dugouts on field 2. And the toilets and the urinals in those bathrooms need to be replaced. And we know about that. Tough decisions and a level of inconvenience now together with an investment of time, resources, and money will result in a long-term success of our athletic facilities. If you do see Melanie, make sure you mention to her that, what a great job she did on this, because she put a lot of time and effort into this on her own. She did it at night, and she did it on weekends with her husband. But I asked her if there was a dollar value that she needed immediately to kind of get these rolling, and she said, I would say not immediately, but we need to know that we do have money in a field maintenance account, so we might be using some of that just to get the ball rolling on that field down there if we decide that we're going to close it. I don't know who makes that decision of whether or not we should close it. I think that's more of our call versus the rec commission.
Maybe a recommendation from them, because they're in practical day-to-day.
The problem is that what we need to do down there needs to be done now.
Okay.
We can't wait until July to start ripping that up and seeding and all that kind of stuff, so.
Well, but that's really under, Dan, it's under the DPW, so it really
Yeah,
it comes down to your recommendation. I mean, I don't want to put field closing, I mean, I think it's a uniform decision,
But
but
close the dump, now you might as well close the field.
We gave alternatives, we didn't close the facility. There are alternatives in place.
seriously, can we talk about it? Does
We
it
don't
make
have,
sense?
you just gave alternatives with fields, but
Does it make sense to close the fields at this point in time? And
yeah, I have to discuss it with John to make sure we have the manpower in order to go right in and do the work right now.
Correct.
And we gotta make
So-
sure the high school's gonna want that.
I mean, he's gonna tell you, he's gonna tell you no.
Of course. But you know what? He should have time now because the employees are slacked off because they can't utilize the facility and do certain things right now. So we should have the manpower and able to do
It's
it.
just a question of getting onto the
The
high school practice fields. To
Yeah, we
use
gotta
them, and then-
confirm
and then
that.
you have
Yeah,
to
we
go
gotta
back.
go in
Well, once that's confirmed, then we roll.
Right.
Okay, we roll.
But it sounds like if
We
you
have-
don't do this, you're not going anywhere. If you don't close it and repair it,
you gotta do
We're
it.
right
You
back
gotta-
in
You
the
gotta bring
same
the
rut.
machine
Got kind of
and take
used
all
to
the
I mean,
garbage out.
every complaint that we get in front of us is always that practice field.
Right.
If you don't have an option.
And we knew that the
right, that's
dirt
what I'm getting
came,
at.
we knew
Correct.
the
If
dirt
you're not
yeah.
doing it, you can't not do it.
Not doing it is not an option.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, the people can't complain if it's closed out, so we're doing
So-
what they want.
Somebody's gonna complain about it.
They're gonna complain no matter what, I think, but I think they're gonna complain less, knowing that we're actually doing
Right.
something about that field.
Right.
Right.
At the end of it,
Going down
he's-
4 inches and taking everything out is the right way. I know what that dirt came from. That dirt was not good when it went in
So Dan, you'll meet with John and then,
there. Absolutely.
Jim, at the end of your report, you mentioned a dollar amount, but you never mentioned the amount.
I have no, I.
You don't know?
I-
Oh,
I
okay.
said to Melanie, you're probably looking at a high number of like 30 grand to get rolling, to get it, what she needs, and I think, I'm just saying high, just so
Yeah.
we can approve it, so we can move forward with it. And
How much is in that field maintenance fund, do you know?
70-ish, I would say, maybe more.
Okay.
That's not special rec, is it? You're talking special rec?
But it's gonna,
Yeah.
not, you got to
Because
consider
that's
the
special.
cost, not only closing the field, then you gotta go out and rent fields in order to replace that, to put the kids on another field in another municipality.
'Cause
Then you
the-
put them on crumb rubber, I don't know what they're gonna do.
The fields we have, our other fields that we have, KRP, Boot Nav, are utilized. Soccer, we have 280 kids playing soccer at Boot Avenue Field, so that
No
can't be
chance of
used.
using anything over at Pearl Miller, huh?
well, listen, I think there's a number of pieces that have to come together, but I will tell you this. I think putting water on that field down there is gonna help it, exponentially.
And putting
Jim and I
air
are
in.
with the grass turf guy. He had a coring tool that looked like, one of those spigots you open,
Tire.
a tire,
Yeah.
and literally could only get down a couple inches. It's hard pan down there.
Yeah.
So, okay, so
It's like concrete.
Dan, you'll coordinate with John and then
But we also have, speaking of being here on that irrigation system, I also have something that I was gonna bring up, that John needs this pit with a meter in, because we have to regulate and know how much water we're utilizing out of our system, because we're paying for water now, for utilization, to put down there so we can run into the irrigation system. It costs $1,897 for this pit, so we would have to authorize that tonight and get it next week and get it installed so that we can start this irrigation system. Otherwise, because the $15,000, I think, was for the irrigation system that's being installed right now, but this is not part of that. This has to be done by the borough. So I was gonna ask that we,
Okay, well, just, are you done with your report?
we have to
or-
do that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, do we have permission to, not to exceed 30,000 of that? I'll talk to Karen tomorrow to see what's in that account, and not to exceed that, just to get the ball rolling, with
Two
seed and
things.
fertilizers.
So we can get to Dan's, but first let's do Jim's, okay? So
Sure.
there's a recommendation on the table to approve an amount not to exceed $30,000 to fund for field improvements. And
Well,
that
the
is,
money's
that money's
there.
gonna come out of.
The money's there.
The money's there, but it's coming out of special rec, is that what?
No.
No, out of the
Okay.
field
No,
maintenance.
So it's
Field
coming out of
maintenance.
field
Capital
maintenance, yeah.
loan.
So the money's already there.
Account, right?
Correct.
Okay, so it's been allocated, just not dedicated.
Correct.
Okay, so someone has to make a motion, I want to just memorialize that.
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Is there a
second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Farina?
Yes.
Councilman O'Dowd?
Yes.
Councilman Barish?
Yes.
Councilman Cavell?
Yes.
Councilman Swenson?
Yes.
And Councilman D'Antonio?
Yes.
Thank you. Anything else, Jim?
No, thank you. It's
Okay, thank you. Dan?
Oh.
Dan?
No, this is for later. When we talk about resolutions, I saw something else.
So Dan has made a recommendation for
Make a recommendation and
a,
a motion that we purchase the pit with the water meter for the irrigation system at the field.
and you want to
At the
make for,
municipal field.
for an amount not to exceed 2,000?
Not amount not to exceed 2,000.
Well, we have money in we put in for capital equipment, because I think part of our plan with the budget was to fund that without having to bond for every little piece of equipment, so there is capital money in
He
the
said
budget
that
for
might
that.
want to come out of water.
I think that might come out of the field renovation dollars, because with the irrigation, that we had the 15,000 coming out of.
It's necessary for that.
It's necessary for that irrigation system.
Well, if we can
And
do
we're gonna
that.
install it ourselves, which eliminates that cost. We're gonna have to
Right.
call dig, 1-800-DIG.
Right.
So
and,
is the
install
2,000
the pit.
incorporated to the 30,000 that we just green-lighted? Is that what you're saying?
No, is that 30,000 coming out of the renovation money for the fields that we have?
No, it's coming out of
No.
field
It's coming
maintenance.
out of field maintenance. But we did, remember we had a separate issue where we appropriated money to do the field renovations a while ago, didn't we?
I'll have to look and see what's in there, Dan, I don't know offhand.
I thought we had
I don't
enough
wanna-
money in that.
What does
field.
that do, Dan? It tells us how much water comes out?
Yeah.
Should that go through water,
I
sewer?
thought, isn't that what he said? He said it might be money in water sewer?
He said there might be money in that, but if not, if he doesn't have money in the
Then
water
it's the other
sewer,
one.
then
Come
we
out of
can
there, they're
utilize.
making money off
Well,
this.
before we take action on the 2,000, I'm gonna make a reach here. I think the money is, as Dan said, I think we put it into a field maintenance account already. So we'll have Jennifer work with Steve. If the dollars have already been allocated, we don't have to take any further action. If they haven't, then we'll discuss it next week, okay?
But it's a meter that
Yeah,
tells you
but
how
this
much
is
water.
something, this is something they wanted to install next week so that we can get this irrigation
Okay.
system
So,
going. So that was the
We're
reason.
gonna
that
make a
we brought it
motion
up tonight.
if the money is not available, okay? How's
Okay.
that? I hate doing that. That's a left-handed, if the dollars have not been identified, we will in fact move forward with a resolution to authorize the expenditure of $2,000 for a water pit.
Correct.
Okay, not to exceed 2,000. So someone offer that, please.
I make that motion.
Okay, great. There's a second? Good. Roll call, please.
Councilman Farina?
Yes.
Councilman O'Dowd?
Yes.
Councilman Barish?
Yes.
Councilman Cavell?
Yes.
Councilman Swenson?
Yes.
Councilman D'Antonio?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Dan, back to you.
Well, I'm up here, aren't you? Okay, let's see, first up, the mayor and I had a meeting with Frank and Karen on on the insurance for the Kinnelon Volunteer Animal Shelter, because we had said that last workshop they would be covering them, and then we thought that was the right thing to do, being we cover everybody else in the borough for their insurance policies. Frank came back with us, and I had Kinnelon Animal Shelter get their policy and give it to Frank. He reviewed the whole policy. He said he can't match their policy, and their policy exceeds what they can provide as a quasi-entity. So he suggests that we pay their premium if we want to do that, you know, but it has to be with the council's approval. Their premium is actually $1,897. So he said that he recommended that we pay their premium, and they will have better coverage, and they will have their own separate policy. But if the council wishes, then we can pay their policy.
Can we do that?
Also,
I don't know if we can pay someone else's bill.
I don't see why we couldn't. I mean,
It's not our property, though.
it is our property.
It is our property.
Well, okay, but are they, so they're not
And
leasing it?
the only question I have is, even if it's a better policy, how much would it cost through the JIF?
No, this is the problem. The JIF policy is a liability and property only. The current policy that the animal shelter has also is a D&O coverage, directors and officers, and that would ultimately be stripped off and not be available under the JIF coverage.
Okay.
So Frank's assessment is because of that officers and directors component of the existing policy.
That's where the value lies.
That's where the value lies.
Okay. So then the agreement is we'll pay for it, or at least reimburse them for it, however we want to word it.
As long as we can pay the bill, the policy's gonna be in our name, or?
No, the policy still be in their name.
Still in
but
theirs.
what you do is you
That's
budget.
my question
You
about.
budget another $2,000 for the animal shelter, and they have money that ultimately they can take out of
So
their
we won't be
budget.
paying it directly, it'll be part of like.
Their budget, their
their
annual
bu-
budget.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, also, Frank did request at the meeting that they have trips from the library, and that they be funded on a $500 a year policy from our JIF that would have to be purchased. But they would also make sure that they're a nonprofit IRS, the Friends of the Library. Are they a nonprofit?
They are. They are definitely a 501c3.
Okay. That was one issue, and Glenn was also present at that meeting, and they want to have a hold harmless agreement done by the firehouse. Anybody that wants to have a party there, they must sign a hold harmless agreement for that firehouse usage.
Can I just back up, Dan? Are you recommending that we authorize JIF to incorporate Friends into the policy? Is that what you're suggesting? Because now we're moving on to the fire company. I just want to make sure I'm clear on what you...
Well, yes, I'm suggesting that we do have this policy for the Friends of the Library for any time that they have a field trip. So in order to do that, we have to purchase this quasi-entity policy for the Friends of the Library. But now, I don't know whose budget that $500 comes out. Does it come out of the library? Because they're making these field trips, and actually, I don't know how many field trips they do a year, but it should be part of the expenses that the people pay to go on these field trips. It should be worked out where they can tell us, okay, it's costing us $500 a year to make these trips. It should come out of the people that are utilizing those trips. It should not come out of the borough.
Because the Friends are a separate entity from the library itself.
Yes.
Whereas CLL is actually another library program.
Right. But
It's a very big one.
It has to be also stated that the library sponsors this trip. If it's coming out of the borough and it's not stated that it's part of, that it's not a trip
Ron
sponsored by the
addressed
library,
yeah.
nobody's covered. So it has to be stated that it's a library trip
Ron
coming out of the
mentioned that at
library.
our last board meeting on Monday last week, that it has to say sponsored by the library at the bottom of any flyer that we put out there.
Correct.
So he has that piece of it. I don't think he has this piece of
It
it.
doesn't have the $500
Exactly.
quasi.
And that's annual?
Annual,
Okay.
500 annual.
I don't know if they're quasi, Dan. I mean, if they're a separate 501c3.
Yeah. But that's the policy that he's given us.
That's the name of the policy.
That's the name of the policy.
Okay.
Who gets the fee when they charge for those things? The library or the?
Friends.
The Friends. So then
And
how are
then
they
the
gonna pay
Friends
for
have their own
insurance?
formula for how they contribute back to the library.
Right, but I
But
believe
that's
it's,
separate.
it's a rider on the borough policy. So we pay for that JIF insurance. So then we would have to get reimbursed by the library.
Well, you know what?
$500, so.
I don't want to make it too complicated, but we charge certain expenses against the library's, the funding that we have to give them, the whatever it is, This will just be another item that we charge against that, and it'll be up to the library to collect it from the friends to make themselves whole.
It's up to them
Yeah, we're not gonna collect $500 from the friends of the library directly to the borough. We'll just charge it against the library's budget.
Check from Mary Esther.
Yeah, and then the library will get their $500 from the friends of the
We
library.
started to talk about the firehouse.
Yes.
Okay.
Also, all right, but before I finish with that, the firehouse and the library both have to adopt a policy and procedure every year, just like we do. And we have to adopt it every year, and we haven't been adopting it every year. So we also have to adopt those policy and procedures every year. I guess if we would do that at reorganization, once a year, to make our GIF whole, okay? But also now back to the firehouse with Glenn. They want people that do rent that firehouse to sign an agreement that they're held harmless, that the borough is held harmless. Oh, here it is. Here, hold harmless agreement. And Frank did say he would work up a better copy for the firehouse, just putting them in it, you know, as he has it. Right, Glenn? And, because if somebody falls, you know that we're gonna get sued, they're gonna get sued, and.
And this comes from Frank.
That came from Frank, yes. Okay, and I did have a GIF meeting too this week, and how are we doing with our CFO? Have we advertised it?
We have one application that came in, that's gonna discuss that during my report.
Okay, there was a fellow that's retiring, the Madison CFO is retiring in October, he lives in Vernon, and he's looking for part-time CFO work for next year. So, I'm just leaving it out there.
Tell him to submit a resume and, you know, what he's looking for, as far as what part-time means, and we'll certainly consider anything at this point.
I could tell him, I don't know if we had advertised.
We have been advertising,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Have them submit it to Karen, right? Pass it on to the rest of them.
Okay, now for DPW, we finally got our permits for excavation, all right? And we're gonna need, we made approvals today. They're gonna take 4 to 6 weeks to get the steel structure in place. So we have to have all the foundations done within 4 to 6 weeks. We had a major issue today with the sheathing on the roof. I don't know if you heard, all the sheathing on the roof was not good. It all delaminated. It was put up in 1966. All the glue in the sheathing delaminated. The contract had in it over $100,000 to replace that sheathing. We got a proposal from the contractor for $21,630 to replace the sheathing. I thought we were going to present it here, and Adam thought we were presenting it here tonight. They ripped all that sheathing off today. It's gone. They took it out, dumpsters, everything else. They did the job.
Who?
They did the, huh?
We never saw it then.
It had.
What sheathing?
But,
Right. So
I
who
mean,
found out
they
what
actually
they
did, they had about 10 guys up there.
I saw them
Today, they ripped it all off. They did it, and I thought we were gonna lose all the ceilings in the building when it was all off, because I said, oh, we're gonna have major rain this afternoon, so, but it didn't happen. So, and they did get all the plywood up, and they topped it.
So they've replaced it already?
Off and on, right today, it was
It's
amazing.
on, it's on.
That's great. And we didn't sign off on it yet.
And we didn't sign off on it yet, but it's a $21,000 additional that I have here as a bill.
I vote no.
We have a contingency in
So-
there.
I'll second that.
So that's real good. So it's $21,000, but I mean, the job had to be done no matter what. We were gonna have to replace it because it was all dilemma, and they picked it off. It was like taking
You saw it,
paper
right?
off the rafters. Yeah.
So, well, I mean, you know what you have.
Yeah, it was definitely no good.
Yeah.
Also, we have,
So, just before we move, so, you're informing us of a change order.
there's a change order for
That's
$21,000.
Right.
$21,630.81.
I have to make a do a resolution for a change order.
No,
Yeah, my copy.
Well, if we have that much in a contingency, do we have to do another change?
It's
If
still a
you
change
had-
order.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's a
Yeah.
change order. I think you still have to do it, right?
Because this is added to the price of the garage, so it's a change order.
Correct.
So this will be on for next week.
Yeah, we're not looking, I'm sure they're not looking for the money yet, they just gave us an estimate on it, but they did the work.
Maybe hold off, they'll forget.
Huh?
Maybe they'll forget.
Yeah, maybe.
At the
All right,
bottom
they-
it says roof replacement on hold until PCO is approved.
And no such-
No such thing. It says it right on. Okay, we also have an application from the contractor for payment. Okay, which includes kitchen renovation. No, it doesn't. They didn't do that. Bonding, insurance, supervision, submittals, structural engineering, temporary facilities, the surveyor, the fencing, the expansion of the new building site clearance, which they've started, soil control, which they've started, excavation, which they've started, which they've asked for $15,000 for, soil removals, and that's another issue which I will discuss, footings and forms, which they have not done yet. The metal building material, which they've put in, but they've only put in a percentage for which probably the deposit of $70,000, which they're gonna take out of this funding, and it's because it's $206,000, which they have for the material. Plumbing, electrical, interior wall partitions, they have percentages on it. They've asked for this payment for $141,474 to start, and the architect has approved it.
The architect approved, even though some of the things weren't done yet? Or
No, he approved what was asked for.
what was done?
What?
Only what was done.
Only what was done.
Because he's sort of the architect on an AIA form, he has to say
That's
that it was
correct.
done.
That's
And
correct.
what's the retainage percentage on that?
2%.
2%?
Yep, 2%.
That's slim.
Usually it's
Did
8.
we have that in the original contract? Did we
I
have
don't
it?
remember the bid documents, but
Yeah,
we usually do a retainage of around 2% on municipal work.
10%.
8, usually, I'm familiar with 8%, but this says 2, so.
Well, why don't we make sure that the architect is satisfied with that and
He
have
signed
Fred-
off on it.
Fred signed off on it, because I mean, he knows the
Can we
bid
look at the
documents as well
document and
as
make
anyone.
sure? Yeah, I guess.
Fred knows the bid documents,
Yeah?
that's for sure, yeah, he's terrific. So I'm
Yeah,
I'm
he's
happy
on
to-
top of the program, so.
Okay.
Less retainage. Okay, now, total retainage. It's completed work towards it. Yeah, add it up, that's what you get. Okay, if Fred is satisfied?
So we'll put this in for processing, we'll ask the clerk to give it to the acting CFO.
Who is approving payment? Everybody's in agreement to pay
Yeah,
this?
I don't think we need to go through approving
Okay.
payments, as long as it's compliant with the,
All right.
Compliant with the architect's schedule, you know what I'm saying, so.
We're good.
Okay. Did the irrigation, as far as the field goes with Melanie, you know, so it has to be a better type of communication too, because apparently what John had said today at our meeting, that Melanie's requiring stuff and she'll schedule a game and then cancel a game, and so we have to have it.
That's how we roll, brother.
So we just want that, so that Todd gets a schedule. That's why we're doing this whole thing, so he gets a schedule. And that should rectify that issue. We have an employee that we can't really discuss, that it's gonna come back on disability, he's gonna go in for his medical and this and that. But we have to discuss some contractual issues too on salary and payment, being these have been out a year. Do we do that in closed session?
Absolutely, and that employee should be raised as well.
Okay,
So I'll bring people.
that would have to happen at next meeting then.
Yes. Well, it could happen next week if we write some promptly and we do it after the.
Yeah, we might need to do that, because the 18th he's scheduled to have his medical to come back. He had a hip replacement, and he's a very valuable employee, but we have to discuss some of his salaries.
My suggestion would be to raise
go
some.
to
and put it
raise
on
them for
for-
the next
You know, because being he's been out a year.
Yeah, it's time, we gotta have the conversation.
Okay, garbage contract.
Garbage contract is done, it's been done. The last thing you asked me to check, the last work session, I got the municipal schedules, then about 2 weeks later almost, I got the municipal data. So the bids are done as far as I'm concerned. The only thing you asked me to check on was the requirement or ability to require the use of liquid natural gas, clean vehicle technology.
Yes.
Propane, liquid natural, or electric vehicles. I don't know that that got any traction at the table, to be honest with you, because obviously it adds significantly to the bid and who can do it. But you asked me to look into it, so I did. I checked with Department of Community Affairs, the fellow who does all the bidding down there. His only concern about it, of course, is if it tends to limit bidding, it doesn't pass muster with him. So it already sounds a little suspect to me. I then contacted DEP, who really administers garbage bids. Contrary, it's not through DCA, it's through DEP. They do not agree with allowing a pure clean technology vehicle. What they agree to, and which I circulated on May 27th to everyone, is, quote, cleaner air technology, which you can put into the bid specs that and again, you'll have this or had it at some point, that the vehicles comply with the diesel retrofit law, that municipalities encourage vehicles to phase in newer diesels, et cetera, et cetera. I frankly don't know if this is even worth doing. I assume, and I don't know that it's a bad assumption, that the equipment that's being used in town already complies with relatively clean diesel technology. I frankly would just rather be done with the bids at this point. But I'm happy to, it's not that much more for me to add.
Currently, they use the natural bids.
And if they do, that's great. But I don't know that we want to put that in our bid documents.
I saw them the other day, they're not that quiet.
Well, they're still essentially running diesel engines, right? It's on natural gas. They're not.
Well, they are quieter than if you just ran a
Yeah,
diesel.
it's quieter than a diesel, certainly. I think frankly we should just be done with the documents at this point. But again, if the council feels strongly about me including compliance with diesel retrofit laws, et cetera, I'm happy to do it. It's a couple, I'll have a few more days, it doesn't matter. But you really can't just mandate only clean vehicle technology.
That's California's
It doesn't seem to, and that's working out well for them, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
okay, so, you know, the discussion is that they're already bound by DEP standards anyway. We
And it's
prefer them
extraneous.
to, but I think based on Mark's conversation, if you're okay, we'll just,
I'm okay with the documents the way they are.
all right, let's get it done.
I think we have to get it done because we don't want to waste any time.
Well, again,
It takes 60 days, you know.
Right, but what I'm saying is, listen, I can add the cleaner air technology paragraphs, but I don't know that it's going to functionally in the field make that much of a difference. But in either case, like I said, I'll have it to you Monday, Tuesday, it's nothing. It's been done. Okay.
Okay, next one was, I know we had talked about doing this Silas Conduit Park and putting a dumpster over there. And Adam and I visited in front of the salt shed today. Maybe we thought we might have a little spot there to put a dumpster, you know, but they still have to do some excavation there. And if we start doing the Kinnelon Animal Shelter, that's gonna have to be worked on that area also, so we really can't.
The water lines John was concerned with and gas lines.
The
coming
water
in.
lines and gas lines coming in are gonna have to be excavated. We thought we might be able to get a little room there. But I don't know, according to John, there's been 0 complaints into the borough. I don't know if you've received any, Karen. We've received 0 complaints going into Silas. I know that you had said, Mayor, that you received a couple of calls.
I did. In fact, it actually, unsolicited, came to the surface at our Realtor meeting today. A woman from, a Realtor from Faison Lake said that it's a hardship to take her vegetative material down to Riverdale, and she was looking for some alternatives. So I told her.
Did she try it? Did she do it?
Yeah,
She's a single person and she has a lot of bags and it was hard for her to do it, to go down there on her own. She has a lot of bags.
But she'd have to bring the bags to wherever she brought it, correct?
I think because she had to go down Route 23, it's too far, it's far for her to go. She's a single person.
Maybe making
what do you
multiple
hear?
trips
I mean,
with single
making
bags.
multiple
Because
trips.
I've had people say, she'd still have to make multiple trips, I know that. But I've had people say it's working very well down there.
Well, I don't think, and it is
No,
working
it
well
is.
down there, but I just, I think we had talked about doing this on a trial basis to see if it worked.
We still have to put a gate up, and we'd have to hire an employee, and we'd have to monitor the site at all times.
Well, not all times, just during hours of operation.
Well, correct.
Are you getting complaints that,
No, I mean, a couple people here and there, but I just, we already have it in the budget for the employee, the dumpsters are in the budget. What could it hurt to offer it to the residents? I think Basin Lakes has probably the biggest hardship there,
Yeah.
and I think they,
What I would hate to see is piles of brush appearing around town. As, not that it's happening, but it's definitely a
no,
possibility.
I appreciate the fact that you track control costs down, that's, and it just.
I mean, right now, we still have to go for the trucking also for trucking the debris out. Right now they're bringing it down there, so there's no trucking cost for us for the containers. We still get the tonnage cost.
What's your thought?
I've had about a half a dozen people call me to say, couldn't it be local? But, I mean, it was easy enough, once I called over to Jim Neal and then talked to, those two different fellows up in the county. I mean, they were very accommodating, saying that, we can do it without an agreement. The agreement will be forthcoming later. So, if it's just a matter of some fencing and one person, are we looking at $1,000 or a couple grand, or are we looking at 10 grand?
I would say probably looking at a couple of grand, not looking at any more.
'Cause
If we can do the fence, if they can do the gate for 1,000,
right.
I don't know if they can do the gate for 1,000.
I don't know, now, as we go into August, right, you don't get a lot of grass growing, but then you get
No,
into
right into
September,
August, you
October,
don't.
and you get
We want
leaves.
we're
It's
gonna be
be
open
leaves.
for leaves.
I will tell you where the conversation migrated at the meeting, though. It was, can the town consider picking up brush?
Curbside pickup
Curbside.
is the
Or
desire.
leaf pickup.
No.
No.
Well, there's a cost associated with that. Why don't we give it a shot, and if it, give it a month, and Cliff, you're okay with?
Yeah.
You heard any complaints, or?
I've heard none. My only concern is we set it up, some people get used to it, then we pull it out.
Well, it's gonna come out
They may
eventually.
complain.
It's eventually gonna come out, it's just.
You mean set up Riverdale and then switch it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, both. Is there any reason if you
I don't
do?
think there's a reason you
I-
can't leave it down at Riverdale as well.
Why?
Why?
That's what I'm saying, there's no reason not to.
Oh, I thought you said there was a reason we couldn't.
No, I'm agreeing with that, yeah. No reason not to.
Let's give it a shot.
We give them
It's
the
only-
option.
And is it a current employee who will be assigned there from the DPW,
Or is it one that's gonna be
There's two
reinstated?
people. One was the former employee that was one of the watchmen.
Yeah.
Somebody else from Basin Lakes that he mentioned, a 75-year-old retired man that would like to do it. So those are two people, and then you'd have to take a DPW worker and assign them there.
periodically?
What are the watchmen, what are the watchmen doing that were working the weekends
I
too?
think one of them.
They would let go.
They would like to
They
work.
received a pink notice, a 2-week notice. Okay, Brian Giblin, I think, wrote them up,
Okay.
okay?
so why don't we just hire him back?
Yeah, that's what I was
Well,
thinking.
Okay.
That's fine. But just let's see what we can do to make it work short term, and if it doesn't work next month, we pull the plug on it, just say it's not.
As long as,
it's not
once
being
it's in
used,
place,
Take
and-
the fence out.
I'm sure
Yeah.
Doug can help us publicize it
Yeah.
properly.
And it shows that the council, I think, took effort to, provide some alternatives, which is what we committed to, so.
okay. Some people have been bringing
And
this.
that's only for brush, correct? Just brush?
Vegetative material.
Has anybody heard what the Boy Scouts now want to do with their newspapers? Because they pulled their container and it didn't come back, and somebody came in to put some newspapers in, and walked in, and it's gone.
My understanding is that they
Sure,
have
it's a Reformed
they have a
church.
pod over by the First Reformed Church.
So if they have a pod there, they gotta publicize it and tell us we got a pod there. They didn't even tell anybody.
The press is here tonight, so that should be helpful.
Pod would be a good idea, so this way they can get their newspapers, because they don't have the volunteers to ride around and pick them up. Problem with the dirt. We have, they pulled the soil out, and they had it tested by Sessi, which is the engineering firm that was hired, and of course it exceeds the New Jersey state regulations for contaminated soil. So therefore, we have to truck the soil out. But Pennsylvania charges $12 a yard. It's the same price as New Jersey charges. So all IBN, which is Ironbound Newark Company, which is the company we've hired, they're only going to charge us the trucking expense to remove the soil to Pennsylvania.
How much?
Someone else.
She's going to give us the number.
The question is how many yards?
Wait, they're going to take it all out first and then give us a bill.
Right. Does that constitute another change order?
Oh, yes, that'll constitute a change order because the trucking to Pennsylvania is not included. Trucking to New Jersey is. It's their trucks.
But it's the same price.
It's the same, yeah, New Jersey charges
Just more
$12
mileage.
a yard
Right.
to dispose
But
of
the
the
mileage is
soil.
gonna be more, so
The
they're gonna
mileage
charge
will
us
be
more to run the
Yeah,
trucks.
To run the trucks. I think it's like 14 loads.
Can't be that.
You know, the asphalt was okay to dump here,
Mm-hmm.
it turned out, but the soil was not.
Okay.
So, and other than that, that was the end of those meetings. I think that was the end of my meetings.
So no dollar amount on that soil or anything yet?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
so they
but
got-
I don't know if we
give us a
should
number.
talk about it in closed session, right? I have the Brian Giblin items
That's
with,
close. That's close.
yeah, with the negotiations contract, I have it all ready.
Great. Thank you, Jan.
Oh, you will.
Now moving on to public safety and
How
technology.
about this, Jim? That's all I got.
What?
Yeah.
Because
You know why? It's all on the website.
No, because Melody didn't write your report.
That's
the-
right.
yeah, so-
Uh-huh. We already talked,
Perfect.
and some of it's already done, so KPD, we're gonna talk about that later, you know, as far as the two individuals that we need to work with on their medical reimbursement. There is a request from the chief that we review our personnel policy on exposed tattoos. We have one officer who has to wear a flesh-colored arm band, sleeve, and you know, with it as hot as it is, he says it's relatively uncomfortable and not very attractive, whereas the tattoos, you know, I guess in their estimation is more acceptable nowadays. It's not as equally, our rules are not equally applied in other departments.
Is he giving us a recommendation?
He says that he would like to see that removed from the personnel policy. So,
So we're gonna talk about that?
yeah,
I vote, I don't have a problem with it.
I don't have a problem with it.
Well, you're gonna remove it for everyone then,
Correct.
so that
It's the
people.
norm now.
I understand, I just wanna understand that.
His point was that his department is sticking strictly by the rules for now, especially since he's accredited. He knows that it's not really enforced in other departments, but, you know, he's leaving it to us to decide. And, you know, it's not an offensive tattoo, which he would have a different opinion about.
Is this one officer or two officers?
Just one that he is speaking about.
I don't think it's a full arm thing. I think it's a Band-Aid that's right here.
No,
Yeah.
It's grown.
I don't know, I saw him on the call at OLM the other day,
We were
and,
talking about, there's two officers then.
oh, okay, yeah.
Exactly.
There's.
Yeah, there was some SAG sheriff's officers there that were asking, like, is that a burn? Like, what's up with that? So,
Okay, well, Mr. Personnel Chair, any concerns or you have a recommendation from the chief?
Yeah.
You can't put something where, in effect, where he can make the decision whether it's
It's
tasteful
gotta be a
or-
uniform policy, but the only concern what I have is if you indicate that you can now, you can show tattoos, you guys are, we're all talking about arms, which may be relatively inoffensive.
What about neck and,
Y-
yeah?
I'm not sure that that's an issue down there, I don't know that anybody has tattoos that
Are
are.
you saying that Mike Tyson doesn't?
Exactly, with Mike
Mike
Tyson,
Tyson,
he won't be able to apply for the job if we ever have an opening.
But I
You know,
don't think you can eliminate them, and I don't think you could, you know.
I understand, but just be ready for what you might see.
I know that,
I mean, I have clients
Careful
when
what
can we
you
make it
ask
exposed
We've seen
arms?
people
I mean,
up-
is,
Sure.
at the backs of their legs, women, I mean, it's okay with big, but, you know, you see snakes going up the back of people's legs and things like that, you gotta accept that then, that's all. Because I've seen it at clients and other places, so.
I think it's a change in society, and I know that the Marine Corps is actually, and the Army is as well, they're relaxing their requirements requirements or, so, let's lay it out this way, if it's not, and it does get into what happens if people have things on their necks.
I thought Adam's suggestion was okay, which is.
Exposed arms are-
Exposed arms are fine.
Right.
Visible tattoos on arms, perhaps.
Can you, I mean, you might want to think about limiting it to that, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
because-
we'll
Yeah.
only go as far as we need to.
And we've got legs, we have some officers that ride bicycles during the summers.
Yeah, that's true.
Just be ready for it if it is what it is.
Extremities?
Below the shoulders.
Below that. Okay, we'll work on some language, Mark.
Yeah, well, it'd be an
Just,
amendment to the policy.
Right,
but-
we got to amend the policy first.
I'll be happy to call the chief.
All right, tell the chief until the policy's amended, though, don't
Yes,
please.
bye.
Yep.
Okay. KBFC, fairly active lately, 2 smoke conditions due to malfunctioning AC units, one at Meadtown, and one at the building we call Sleep Tech, I think that's 135 Kinnelon Road. Bloomingdale's Ladder responded, that's the remarkable piece of that, is that they've come in a couple of times to assist and mutual aid. Other notable things in the last, since this meeting, was an overturned vehicle just a couple nights ago, Gravel Hill and Brush Hill. One car trying to make the swing without seeing the other car and was actually rolled a couple times. That was an extrication. They took the roof off to get the person out of the car. And that's where the firefighter that was here earlier had his finger got in between a sledgehammer and a Halligan tool. So a little miscommunication. That'll need some extra training. But there was some mutual aid training with Riverdale as far as shuttle drills, and we did a standby. Everybody probably read about the music store in Pompton Lakes that went up, so we were called in to stand by at Riverdale while Riverdale was on scene with Pompton Lakes. Triborough, members needed, was their call for assistance. Public safety, the LEPC, Local Emergency Planning Committee, held a meeting just the other night on June 8th. In attendance was KPD, the Fire Department, OEM, Board of Ed. We reviewed sheltering facilities and what those policies and procedures are going to be. There's going to be further meetings between probably OEM and the Board of Ed at this point to figure out. At this point, we've always used Kiel School, but there's some opinion that maybe PRM would be a better suit for that. FEMA has some money out there for disaster mitigation. So Ernie's going to work with that.
Especially generators, right?
Generators, exactly.
Money for
Where
generators
the power
for
is.
FEMA, so they have backup power over there.
Right. None of our facilities, shelters as we call them, or warming centers, actually have heat based on their generators. So while we opened up that other one during the storm, if it was to be sub-zero, we might have had issues and might in the future. So just try to get ahead of it and make a recommendation between the borough and the Board of Ed and set a direction as far as where we're going to go, and then what are the requirements for a generator, like Steve said. So Ernie's investigating, we'll have a report back from him soon. Technology, infrastructures, computer phones, we did the emergency appropriation, but I don't know, through some different communications, it may need to be an ordinance, it might not need to be an ordinance, but as of next week, I think we're going to have a budget approved anyway, right? So I don't know if that mitigates that, but the computers have been ready to go and be ordered, and just kind of.
Did you ask that question about emergency?
Yeah, well, we did the emergency appropriation, which apparently.
This is outside.
Yeah.
But like you said, we're passing the budget next Thursday, that green lights that.
Yeah, so,
It's in the budget, yeah.
yeah, so it makes it kind of irrelevant at this point that we waited, the 3 weeks. Other than that, everything's ready to go. Real quick on the website and Facebook, Kinnelon, I guess me as one of the administrators was contacted via Facebook Messenger about some unkept properties on 2 on South Glen, 1 on Fell K, and 1 on Hilltop. And I passed that along to Karen, the mayor, and the zoning officer to take action on. But it's just interesting now that the grass is growing, and vis-a-vis our vacant property laws, the maintenance laws, as far as how we handle that. So the registration of the banks, when they take over a property and whatnot, and I don't know if that extends to vacant properties that are otherwise continue to be owned. I don't think that homeowners will bother to do it anyway. But, you know, if we were to have a fee, that could go into a kitty to counter if we had to do some maintenance on these properties, you know, and require, like we talked about, an in-state representative to be able to contact.
Well, we can also, our property maintenance ordinance, I believe, also allows us to do that work and then put a lien on the property. So
Charge
we
against
will
the
be,
property.
right, we will be paid eventually, even if there's no kitty or, there's, you know.
Right. So there's 58 properties. I asked the tax assessor's office to, you know, whittle that down. I'll just, unless it falls to a certain other committee, which I don't know, but I was going to kind of come up with a process whereby instead of that information coming in from just the banks that they foreclosed on a property, which I think Karen right now gets a file, it goes to the tax assessor, everybody kind of files it, put it more out front for our fire prevention official to be able to monitor these properties, for the zoning officer to be able to monitor the properties, and I think for the governing body to be aware of what's going on. So whether it's an online database or whatever, so you know we have it up to date. You know, originally it was in the hundreds. We've pared it down as to you know what's been bank-owned real estate that's been sold already. There's another one that's about to close next week. The realtors told us today. So it's 58 properties at this time. But so I'll be working on some kind of process for that. And the last thing was the website. Again, I shared it today because you know I think it's all of our opinion that you know that's kind of the face of Kinnelon to the world. And I just showed them that same sheet that I passed around to us, and you know got some very very good feedback. So hopefully July 1st, if you all want to take a last minute look at that, and you know we're 98% there. And then just one note from, I had asked about the CCO today, and as far as opinions or what they've experienced, and the feedback was that Bloomingdale's, which you know I know we're using kind of as a template, they said is quite onerous, you know, to the point.
It looks long.
Yeah, they said that they've had it for a long time and they keep adding to it. That the towns that are new with it keep it very basic. It's about safety.
That's
It's
all it's
about
supposed to be.
you know protecting. Yeah, and the towns that have had it a long time, like Bloomingdale, they micromanage it to the point that it's the pointing on the chimney, you know, has to be a certain way, or painting is a certain way, and you know, they agreed that we need to have something, and it should protect the buyer, the seller, and you know, keep the kids. Exactly.
Yeah, that's all it's supposed to be.
Right.
Handrails.
Yeah.
And that,
I don't like the color of the paint, it's too bad.
Right. So once I went back and looked at the Bloomingdale stuff, they're accurate that it is a little
Creepy.
onerous.
It is.
yeah, it's
So,
supposed to be smoke detector, hammer, you know, life safety.
So
Simple.
the manager of the Wykert office actually had some experience in Wayne, and she's offered to basically file that or forward that template to us, so we'll have a little bit of a comparative.
Okay. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks, Ed.
What about, I forgot to mention mine, the insurance guy. I mean, the police are the ones that are waiting for us
We're
to
gonna
make
talk
a
about,
decision.
we're gonna talk about that.
They said
close.
save it for
Oh,
close.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, I'm sorry.
Steve?
Finance. The state has approved our budget, so as we mentioned earlier, we can, the state approved it, so we can adopt it. But I think we do have to next week have the opportunity, or hold a hearing on the amendment to it. That's under, I think, tab 3 of your, it hasn't changed since it was, I think, last week, last month. There were some changes, there's some small changes that the state wanted, but the final form of it is under tab 3. Basically, we're going to use about another $130,000 worth of surplus. Everything else came from breakage on salaries, debt service, and then some increased expenses. But the net was to use about another not 130, about $110,000 worth of surplus to have us, you know, no impact on taxes this year, no increase in taxes. So once we have a hearing on the amendment, then we can proceed and adopt the budget if that's what the council wants to do next Thursday. The audit will be done within a week to 10 days. Then I'd like to sit down with the finance committee and the auditor to go over a draft to see if we have any problems, concerns, questions that he didn't ask him to do anything else. And then after that's done and finalized, we have the auditor meet with the entire governing body, either at a special meeting or the next workshop, whenever the council wants to do it, to go over the audit and the findings with our auditor. Okay. we received a request, you mentioned earlier, Meadtown, and I did misspeak, you said that a real estate tax appeal, but we did receive a request from the council for the new owners of Meadtown. Apparently there's a bond with about,
Correct. I prepared a resolution to release that. I don't know that it made it on here, or if I pre-forwarded it, I just handed it to Karen. If you need me to send it in Word, just please shoot me a quick email to remind me.
$71,660 we have on account for that. My only question was, are there any, Mark, you would know, I guess, are there any requirements that we should have the engineer look at, or legal requirements?
No, the
that
engineer was
everything's-
who wrote me to clear it.
He
I think
did
the
get a clearance, okay,
Right.
that's what
I think the engineer's suggestion was we release everything except 5,000 or so? Was that the 2,500?
2,500?
Just in case there's any, essentially his bills that might trail off as we.
His-
Yeah, I don't know that I'm gonna have very much, but save 2,500 just in case there's some
Okay.
final closeout bills.
All right, so I know that's, and then finally, we did receive one resume. We don't, I mean, he's not an employee, we don't have to talk about it, and we're not gonna mention any names, but we don't have to save that for closed. We did get a resume with a person who was a current CMFO, has the license, is working somewhere. The salary,
124 to 140.
yeah, 124 to 140, it's higher than the range we had been talking about. This person has a lot of experience, but he's also a QPA, so that may
Save $3,000.
save a few bucks. Well, you know, if you have a QPA on staff, I think you're gonna use it more than using your consultant, so it may have the opportunity to save a few more dollars. But we can talk about that, and then you just said that there's a part-time, a person who's a retiring,
In October.
you know.
Why don't
That
you move forward with interviewing?
Well, I was gonna suggest if the committee wants to, unless the salary is a complete turnoff, then I would recommend, my recommendation was that the finance committee meet with this candidate and come back with a recommendation.
The only thing is, we've got on the consent agenda tonight, approving the shared service, specifically the services of the QPA, so I don't know if that.
May I say something?
Sure.
The reason that that's on there is because when I did the resolution originally in the beginning of the year, Holly's name was to be placed in there, so
Okay, so that's
Colleen
not-
said I had to redo it.
Okay.
So that's not a consideration then for this
No.
conversation?
I had to redo that.
Okay, so, then we'll set meetings then with the finance committee, with the auditor, within the next, I don't know if it'll be before next Thursday's meeting or not. And we'll also schedule a meeting with the finance committee and this candidate. Okay? I'll work with you on it, call the guy.
Give me a call. let me know
Yeah,
when you
we'll
want to-
decide whether you wanna call him, I'll call him. Budget, everything. That should be it, till we sit down with the auditor and go over the findings and whatnot.
Thanks, Steve. Moving on now to coordinating an open space. Karen.
Thank you, Mayor. Board of Adjustment, nothing really to report there, other than, in reading through Mark's report, I don't know if I should mention this, they would like to request the council's ordinance committee to review their building code as regards, chapter 207-27, in regards to, height of a one-story building. And, you mentioned it in your report, and it's on page 2, item C.
Are you
And
asking-
increase the allowable area for a two-story building.
Yeah, that's floor area, we've never
Okay,
talked about height.
all right. This one was in
Well, we can
regards to
certainly talk about
the height of a building, specifically, say, a garage, so that there couldn't be a second story on top of that.
So the height of accessory structures, is that what we're
Yes,
talking about?
yes.
The garage is the issue.
Yes.
Okay.
And
They do or do not want.
Don't height.
they want a specification, because apparently Kinnelon's code says no second story, but then there's a gray area in between with the second story of
Why is there a gray area? Did they tell you?
there was,
I know exactly. There's
I
there's
know the
three or
building
four
we're
of them in the
talking about,
community.
Yeah.
and I think the definition of a floor and a half came up.
yes, that's where it
What's a
came up,
floor
and there
and a
was some
half?
gray area in between what a floor was. And
Okay, happy to look at it.
And I will also reach out to both Tom Berardi, I always say that name wrong, Berardi, and Dan Hagberg for some further explanation, and I'll CC you on the
That'd be
email as
great.
well as
Thank
you, Cliff,
Sure.
and Jim, the ordinance committee, okay? Next, let's see, both the Board of Ed and the Borough coordinating committees met on June 4th. The Highlands applications were submitted and approved. The permits have been submitted to New Jersey DEP. I believe it was on 6/4 you said that they were 6/3 or 6/4.
More or less.
They were, and it was explained that there's a minimum 90-day waiting period until the permits are approved. After the permits are approved, then construction of the artificial turf can begin. Meanwhile, both Board of Ed and Borough will continue to work to get basically their ducks in a row. Board of Ed will work to approve their RFP at their June 25th meeting. This will take 60 days or 2 meetings for the leasing of Kinnelon High School field to the borough. Borough will have to have a courtesy, Board of Ed will have to have a courtesy review of the project by the borough's planning board before construction can start. The borough will work and discuss, the lease agreement, which is going to include the field use agreement. And it was felt that this document needed to be much stronger. I asked the questions of Jeff before as regards how to insure the turf field. The length of lease, it can exceed the life of the product due to restrictions of the life of the bond. And the bid process, Mark would like to review the specs from Master Engineering, and which can't happen until, I guess the bid process can't happen until DEP approvals are awarded and the financing is in place. Also, at the very end of that meeting, Jim began a conversation with the Board of Ed as regards the possible use of Kiel School as a borough community center.
Can we talk just a moment about that?
Cisco School, I'm sorry, you're right, I'm sorry, I had that wrong.
One of the things that was James Pelosi, who I have a very high regard for, and I've been talking about in the last week or two, there's 2 sets of bid specs we're talking about here. The first is that the Board of Ed has to do a set of bid specs because leasing property requires bidding that lease. And of course, in all likelihood, the borough will be the only respondent, but that's one set of bid specs. And then a little bit later, Carol talked about the bid specs for the construction. So there's 2 different ones, and they've been confused before. Sometimes we want to make sure we don't get them confused. But James and I have been discussing something, and we may have to talk about the financing component of this sooner rather than later. And I think the options are as follows, and then of course the decision is made here. Remember, if you choose to use open space funds, then you require this entire leasing process, okay? Because you have to require an interest in the property, an interest that is a fee or lesser interest. And then you have to deal with that question, and then ultimately you have to, at some point, consider whether or not there's going to be an appeal of that, and whether or not the time frames where it's likely to get done. If you are not using open space funds, and you're bonding, for example, you don't need any of this. In fact, you don't need a lease. You don't need the Board of Ed to bid the lease. You don't need any of this constraints. You can just do an interlocal with the Board of Ed. So, but that would then require bonding the project, and as opposed to the use of open space funds for the project. So, I don't think you have to make the decision tonight, but I think the format of the transaction is driven more by the financing options you choose than we talked about at that meeting. And again, those conversations James and I have been following up with each other. So I don't know if you want to talk about it tonight or talk about it some other time, but I do think at some point in the very near future you need to talk about it. Well, if you bond, you can bond today. You can bond, of course, it's one of those situations which we've heard in bonding all the time. You bond, it doesn't mean you're spending the money.
Right.
It just means you have the money available to be spent. So fundamentally, that's a question and a road you guys have to pick. Open space, which requires a certain set of documents and format, or bonding, which requires a different set of documents and format.
Well, I think we were looking at kind of a hybrid, because we said we were considering bonding and then using open space revenue to pay the bond.
Yes.
So the bond would not require that information.
Bonding you could do right away.
But paying the bond every year
Would require
what?
that would require then this lease transaction.
The lease transaction.
Correct.
Okay.
And the use of those funds, again, may or may not happen on a relatively expedited basis, because there may be appeals of those kinds of things. There could be also appeals of just a straight bond deal, but I think it's less likely, and also, the straight bond deal doesn't require any legal questions, or it doesn't require a legal analysis, really. It's just, you bond, we do it all the time. So I think maybe people should conceptualize this and then be prepared to talk about it sooner rather than later, okay?
The other part that came about through after the meeting in my own mind was the only real costs I've ever seen on paper in black and white are through an email from the borough's, from the Board of Ed's engineer, and a response from our borough engineer. And they were two very different prices. We don't know how much we've spent thus far on this, whether,
Well, that's because we were waiting for DEP approvals, and, because they could
well,
still.
there's been money spent thus far.
Correct.
Would it be advisable? I think it would be advisable if we did some sort of cost analysis on this.
Correct, and I agree with you 100%, and that's what we're all waiting for. But we need the DEP to say, this can happen, but we don't know what their butt's gonna be. Their butt might be, and no pun intended, but they might say, you need to have a 4 million gallon holding tank and this, that, and the other.
Right.
We don't know that. That's why we don't have a price
You can't price out
yet.
the project yet, because you don't.
So when they get it
But-
back to us, then we'll be able to get a firm price.
Can at least the prices that, or the money that's been spent thus far be put down on paper so that we see it from what we've reimbursed the Board of Ed for whatever.
Sure.
And because
It's only that one thing.
Jennifer can tell us what we spent already. You could ask her that tomorrow.
It was like,
32, I don't know.
it was like 30 grand or something, wasn't it?
30 grand, I thought that should be appropriate, 30,000.
But I think we have to jump ahead and decide how
How are
are
you
we
gonna
funding
finance
this? If it's
Right, but
bonding.
you can't fund until you have an idea what it's gonna cost. I mean,
Well,
you could bond for, there's women in the room. You
Right.
could bond for $10 million and the money could be available, hypothetically, okay? But I think it's incumbent upon us to get a number on the table.
Fair enough.
Okay?
Somebody's gotta be,
Right,
I
but I
think,
think once, and I understand what Jimmy's saying, you don't know what ultimately is gonna be required as far as drainage and something like
Right,
that.
and we all talked about that.
Until you know what that number is.
Comes in, it's a $3 million
we're-
project, we're walking away. you
Right,
know,
we just don't know. So I think
That's right.
that, to Mark's point, I mean, it gives us a time. There's a 90-day wait period now here, so we could bring this back to the table next month, okay, with a clear understanding at that point in time what the cost might be associated with ultimately bonding. And
I think we might be able to get an idea from Naves and Engineering. I think they're very adequate, and they know what really has to be done with the DEP and everything else. I think they can give us a range of what they.
well, I was just
what
gonna
that price
say,
would be.
do something like what we just saw from the fire company.
right.
Plan A and Plan B.
Yeah, my only concern with that.
Worst case, best case scenarios.
My only concern with that is, are they gonna do that for free, or do they want 10 grand?
We should be able to get some range or idea. My only point is, if we're gonna continue to do this in a linear fashion, which is
did
we
that
don't
for
talk
us.
about financing until 90 days from now.
Right.
Then we talk about financing. Then we say, okay, choose the bond route. Then we
2 months for.
Then we got 2 months for bonding.
I know what you're saying.
Then we're still in this linear, then we do our bid specs. Because, now you have funds available,
here's what I'm suggesting,
So-
okay? Because you're right, Mazer should be able to give us a range.
They
Okay,
did that, right?
so even with all the drainage and everything?
Will they give us?
I don't have it on.
No, there was a range. We were talking about, a year ago, we were talking about a number that was somewhere between 1,000,001, 1,000,000, whatever those numbers were.
Well,
And-
Mazers came in at 800,000, somewhere in
Okay,
there.
but there
With
may
a
have been
very
some
low
s-
contingency fee.
Right, but did that include the carpet and everything? But there is
Yes, it
something
did.
somewhere, which, okay, so you 800, so you bond for 1,000,002.
You bond
and-
for not
That's
to exceed
whatever.
$1 million or $1
If you
million
choose
or
to go that
something,
route, if you choose to go the open space route, then that's a different story. But if we don't start thinking about this until 90 days from today,
I see
It'll
what
never
you're
get
saying.
done.
we're in a linear format.
Right.
I think it's frustrating, but again, it's up to you guys.
Well, I thought we had talked about bonding it and then using open space to pay the
Correct.
bond.
You have to make a decision, is that the wisest, is that the way that will accomplish?
Well, why don't we do this, okay? We start the conversation this month.
Right.
We'll put on the table actually for action next month, okay?
I'll get the paper for Mazer, because I know they have it.
But let's
We got
put it on the.
Can we put it on for next week?
No. I think that's the wrong way to
Why?
go. I think because at this particular point in time, you may have items outside of ultimately what Mazer originally put together. The DEP transition area for wetlands could be huge. You know, I've heard numbers from Darmafasky, 1,200,000 to 1,500,000. Okay? So I think, once again, if we're gonna bond something, I think we have to have something a little concrete. I know there's a rush to get this funded as quickly as possible. Mark's made a great point. We have to choose a path, either we're gonna bond it, or use open space, or
Well, I
what
think,
Steve
Bob,
said.
we're not looking for a number right now. I think we're looking to determine the path, as you said.
Right.
Well, I thought
Short-term.
I thought you wanted to take action, actually start the bonding process.
That's correct.
And I think
But
that,
I think we
No,
can get
I
a number, like
think-
we can go 1.2.
Do we have to take action, or at least agree, even if it's not in the form of a resolution or an ordinance, but I think we have to agree which way, the path that we
Right.
want to take, to use the term
Right.
that Bob came up with. We can do that next week, by next week, and tonight, if we wanted to sit and do it, but I think we have to know the path, and then we'll get the number. The number's gonna be given to us by engineers, we're not gonna come up with that. So I think, we have to decide which way we wanna go, and be resolute about it.
Well, I also think we owe it to the Board of Ed, if they are doing this work on crafting bid specs and gonna be ready to bid the lease, and then that's not necessary, we should tell them that sooner rather than later. But it can be next month, I'm not saying it shouldn't be a thoughtful process. I just don't wanna be starting the discussion in 90 days.
but and to that point, I mean, if you're 90 days out, that's June, July, August, okay? So if you basically go out to bond in July, right?
Right?
August, you're done.
Funds available maybe end of August.
Right. So you have basically the window you're.
It's only
the
30
time
days,
line.
right?
I mean, if we,
Bonding is gonna be
62
days.
days.
more like 60.
60
More like
days.
60, so it'll be available October.
So you'll have July and August.
July and August.
Again, it depends how you count the days, but I don't think we can, consider.
Because we don't meet till the middle of July.
Right.
Yeah, but if you're 90 days from June, right? June, July, August, right? Right?
to get approval.
To get approvals.
No, September, June 6th, July, August, September
September.
6th.
So
is when you'll
September
have-
6th.
When you'll, if DEP doesn't ask for an extension,
Right. So
that's
then-
when we'll know.
And if you move forward with bonding in July and August, then you.
There's a little bit of
introduce
room
it,
there.
You still have room.
But remember, the Board of Ed is gonna start discussing, preparing the bid
What happens
specs
if
on
the
the
DEP
property.
gets sooner than we
Well,
just go soon?
That's always great, but the hope that DEP ever does anything sooner is off
Well, do you
disappointing.
want to have a decision, what Steve said, or do you want to
Well,
talk
I
about the
think
direction of path?
Candidly, we all know that if we use open space, it's gonna be a pain in the neck. It's gonna be challenged, it's gonna be, I've heard the word lawsuits and everything else.
And then we're down to that legal question 2 years from now, whether or not it's a fee or lesser interest. And if we lose that argument, you start again.
Right.
I mean, we addressed
And if
the
the-
cancer
But it's already built and
issue.
being paid for. What do they do? In other words, if we go forward and we say we just, for.
Well, I gotta tell you, I would wanna talk to bond counsel about how comfortable they are
That's a
then
very good
bonding,
point.
because
Yeah.
bond counsel tend to be really squeamish. And they don't do anything unless it's 100% on. So, again, one path, the other, or a hybrid, each one has its pitfalls and difficulties. And I assume now this whole process includes the upgraded fill, so we're not using the chrome rubber fill. All of those items that are designed to make this work.
Mhm.
but I do think we should, again, next month is fine, or whenever the
Well, no,
intention
we
is.
can, we
but-
can establish a path tonight, I don't have a problem with
Yeah.
that. Okay, if in fact, and you started the conversation, so what were you gonna say?
That I think by going with the open space, I know that's probably 80% of the issue right now is the open space funds. So my
Well, then I think
thought is bonded.
Well, we're gonna bond it anyway, I believe. We're not gonna, we wouldn't just take all the money out of the open space fund and reduce that fund and
So
buy it.
maybe
But
do that component, and then later on tackle the question if you could make payments on the, you know what I'm saying?
If we can do that, that's fine. And then there's always, because we've spoken about, and we did it this year, we had no tax and, no increase in taxes, and I think we're relatively all committed to doing that next year because of the revow. So then I think it would just be a matter of, if you don't want to use open space to fund the bond payments, reduce the open space tax, and use that.
You can't,
Use that.
you can't reduce the open space tax without,
Without a vote.
without, you
Without
just
a
can't do that,
referendum.
referendum.
Oh, we did last time.
We
did
reduced
it.
it, but
We
I
reduced
thought
it,
you were
but-
talking about taking it to zero. Are you talking about zero
No,
or?
you could take
No,
it.
we'll take it down to,
And if we do that, does that jeopardize the planning incentive grant? Money.
Those are good questions.
I-
But I think that, listen, getting back to Mark's point, we've got to establish a direction. Jim just made, I think, an argument that it's going to be difficult to move forward using open space. And
We all know, everyone in this room knows that.
Okay, so then if that's the
Either way, you're
case,
starting with bonding.
so if that's the case, right?
How you pay it.
You're gonna bond for it. I think that's the.
I think it creates less problems with the Board of Ed, with the lease and.
If you bond for it, you
And it's
do,
cheaper for them, like you said, it's cheaper to do the project. We
if
just
down
bond.
the road we determine that we want to pay for it with open space, current revenues, not dip into the corpus of the fund.
I would have to check with bond counsel. I wouldn't
Okay.
even give you an answer. But my point then being is your deal with the Board of Ed then becomes a two-page interlocal.
Mm-hmm.
That is,
And a use agreement.
and what I envision as a thorough use agreement
Right.
as Exhibit A.
Correct.
Well, and
That's
then,
it.
to that
You're
end,
done.
should the use agreement be looked at for all the fields between Borough and Board of Ed?
Why would they want to do
Well,
that?
Why do we want to make this bigger?
Why do
If
we
this
want
is-
to, why do we want to
If the intention is
complicate
to
it
do
even
this,
more?
This is just making sure we get,
it's about one field,
Or
it's
invest-
not
We didn't pay
add-
for the other fields, why would they?
Okay, so
Yeah,
here's the
we know what the
bottom,
amortization
here's the
is,
bottom
though?
line.
but
Okay,
they're
here's
also
the-
using our fields that helps.
Here's the
tear it
bottom
down.
line, okay? If like you, the majority of council wants to move forward with a bond approach here, and that changes the dynamic, Mark can talk to the attorney from the
Call
Board of
Jamie,
Ed
yeah.
and say, listen, it changes the legal requirements here. So, as Steve said, if in fact we can do debt servicing through open space dollars, that can be a subsequent consideration.
Subsequent consideration.
Right, but right now, at least we have direction on the bonding, and so at least, that once again gives the Board of Ed a feel for where we're going. So, okay?
Okay, let's see, Board of Health, did not have a meeting this month, and the Library Board of Trustees. Speak Out, Girl Scout Madeline Florio will be presenting her community project for her Gold Award this Saturday from 2 to 4 p.m. on the lawn between the side of the library and the library's marquee. Her project is to bring awareness to Kinnelon residents as regards both domestic and wild animals here in Kinnelon and our responsibilities towards these animals. A pet adoption and other fun family-related activities are scheduled. Eagle Scout project presentation was made by Michael Propopoulos. He presented his proposal, a lot of P's in that, to build and install a covered locked bulletin board adjacent to the playground outside the library. The intent of the space is to promote the library's children's programs, and the Board of Trustees unanimously supported the project. Their summer reading program kicks off on Monday, June 22nd, and the museum passes are still available. You can just check them out with your library card. Historical Commission, the Coles renovation update. The county visited LaCole for Phase 2 of grant funding. The request was for approximately $339,000. The borough's portion would be about 20% of that, or 70%, or $70,000 plus or minus. and $270 from the county. When the county came and did their field research, they basically said that they have 46 requests for grants, and which is about triple the requests that they've had before.
One?
What?
There's only one grant?
No, they out of their pool of money.
How much is the pool?
Forgetting how much.
46 million?
Something.
46 million?
17.
17 I think it is,
million?
yeah.
Keep everybody a million.
So they have triple the request for the amount of money that they have to grant. They asked if we would consider, I think I spelled this right, bifurcating the project and
What does that word mean?
breaking the project in two, okay?
No, I was thinking something else.
No, you hope.
You're a dirty, dirty guy.
That's not what I was thinking.
Tom Klein and our architect met
I
and came
know
up
you.
with a Plan A,
I'm gonna pay
which
for
would be
this.
for about $169 and $169,000 to replace the roof, gutters, drainage, etc. And Plan B for about $170,000 for the remainder of Phase 2, which would complete the siding, handicap access, walkways, and the outhouse. The freehold
169,000 was roof and gutters?
roof, gutters,
Yeah.
drainage, and then the Plan
Drainage
B.
being, it's got leaders and gutters and things, or?
In meters and, yes, around the building to take the water away, so.
Dan, that sound like a big number?
Exception, run up a dollar.
169,000, roof, leaders, gutters and drainage, 169K?
Sounds like all money. For me, for a house. It's a
Yeah,
house.
that's what I'm saying. That's
It's a
Well,
lot
it
of
might
money.
be,
Just sounds like a lot of money.
is it considered
It's a
historical?
way,
They have to-
way
Is
lot
there
of
something
money.
special they have to do because it's historical? Seriously.
Sometimes they do.
They do, I think that there is, and I've abbreviated
Okay.
the scope of
Just-
work here.
Alright.
But the freeholders will make their decision on June 24th as to whether they will fund all, some, or none. Their annual garage sale this past Saturday was another success. They netted nearly $1,000. And their Pathway of History tour is on October 10th and 11th. Environmental has not met yet. And with the Open Space Advisory Committee, the trail grant, they're still waiting to hear if will be awarded that. If and when awarded, the project start date is approximately April 2016, with a completion of November 2016. And Totowa, Borough has completed all of their requirements. We're waiting for the owner to get their corporate charters in place. Once all is done, it should be only a few weeks until we can close.
They also are finalizing a well closure on that. What happened is their corporate charter ran out, so there's that title issue, and they have to reinstate the charter, which of course means they have to pay a lot of back taxes and fees when you reinstate a corporate charter. So that's a paper issue they have to deal with. A brick and mortar issue they have to deal with is, I don't think they've finalized a well closure
The
yet.
well has been closed.
Has it? We
Yeah,
have to
it
Yeah.
has been certified.
Maybe that's it, we just need the certificates.
Yeah,
in,
exactly. It
but
has been closed, but it's just paper, it's basically the borough has done everything that they've done.
We're up to speed.
And we're waiting for their paperwork to come in, and then we can close. And I believe the total, an approximate total would be in the area of $170,000, with 50% of that and 50% of the soft costs being reimbursed to the OS fund from the Green Acres Planning Incentive. And the real crux of it is that it preserves that $700,000 for
What's
future
your,
use.
do we have an idea what it's gonna cost to make it what you want it to be?
We haven't gotten estimates yet.
conceptual plan
There's no
yet.
conceptual plan, but, I think the Veterans Park is really, and we're talking about a limited amount of parking spaces, maybe 6 spaces, and that's flat already. In fact, I don't know what was there previously, but we don't have a number. Less than,
think that's compacted
less
back
than a
there?
playground, Jim. Jim, less than a playground.
No, I'm just curious what you're gonna do with it and what, what,
Well, we'd like to do small plantings, minimal maintenance for any upkeep.
I'm just trying to think if
Definitely a
there's-
walking track with Veterans Memorial in the center of it. It's gotta be better than what it looks like now.
We'll bring a concept back here.
no, I'm just trying to figure out what kind of use we can get out of it, or what kind of park
Is-
or?
Well, I know that when I was driving through Smoke Rise the other day, I had two women with strollers, shoulder to shoulder. So if you could put a little walking path in there, it's.
No, I agree.
It's
And you only have
5 acres
6
in there.
parking spots, so
Yeah.
kinda.
They could park at the firehouse and walk across the street.
Yeah, I thought you could do that too.
No, that's true.
Anything else? Yeah?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Now moving on to personnel and ordinance. Cliff.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I get to the committee reports, a couple of things I want to mention briefly. First, Mayor, you may have seen, if we go back a couple of months, you guys may remember we got a letter. I'm also president of Lake Reality. We got letters from the state about our dam, giving us till June 1st deadline to have our plan and design ready to redo our dam. We asked for an extension of that, and we have been given an extension until October 1st. We've hired and retained an engineer. He's starting the process. In fact, he helped us get the delay from the state because it took 3 months to get them to respond to that. But just so you know, up to date, we have now until October 1st before we get that state breathing down on us. So we've got breathing room there. The other issue is, Mayor, my younger son is in 7th grade. He has a teacher named Ms. Chalette. In her class, my son's not included in this, but in her class, she had several students who wanted to come to a council meeting and give some ideas that they may have about things that we can do in town. I recommended that they come to, one of the public meetings. She loves the idea. The problem is it's getting close to the end of the school year. But I think they're going to, she's going to have 3 or 4 students come to next week's meeting and give a presentation. I don't know if we can maybe squeeze them in early. They are young kids, it's school night.
We'll put them on.
But it sounds like they may have some neat ideas, so I think it'd be good for the council to hear them.
This is
And they're excited about coming.
Is Luke Florio in his class?
He is, I don't know if he's one of the ones that will be presenting.
Okay.
Might be.
But to answer the question, yeah, we'll get them on first.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, great, thank you. Now, to committee reports. First, if you remember, I'm not going to give any details on this, but last week in closed session, we met with our labor attorney. The issues we discussed with him, I think Dan's prepared to address in closed tonight. Also with Brian Giblin, he has been trying to get in touch with, as far as the town hall personnel contract negotiations, he's been trying to get the union attorney to schedule another meeting so we can get together. I think we've been trying since last month's meeting, and he's getting no response from the union attorney. So he's trying to step up his contact efforts with him. But so unfortunately, there's no developments to report on that front. We're waiting for them to come back. If you may remember that we wanted to get from them the rest of their plan as far as changing the payment for the personnel staff, particularly the hourly wage people. We have not gotten that or set another meeting. The tree ordinance is still with the Environmental Commission. I got one of the members, you'll know his name, I'm going to mispronounce it, John Larowski, something like that?
Lorkowski.
Larkowski. He got back to me, said he liked the revisions we made and approved it, but I have not officially heard back from the whole commission. So I've sent a couple emails to Cheryl Kinnelon trying to get a full response from them. So then hopefully, maybe next month I can bring it to the full council.
I'll bring it up at the next Environmental Commission, but that's the week after next week's council
Okay.
meeting. So
That's okay.
if we haven't heard anything back from then, I will definitely follow up.
Okay. That's fine. Along those lines too, I also had an extensive conversation with Scott Sempter.
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 Something like that. There's a lot of consonants in there.
Simptner.
He had some good ideas about the ordinance, and he and I sat down and spoke at length about it. And but those have all been incorporated in what I sent out before. The ordinance regarding signs in town, I still have not heard back from the planning board. I don't know where they are.
She was away for a while. I know that.
Right. And
She
they
also
haven't had a
missed
meeting
last
yet.
week's meeting, so
Oh, okay.
she's back now.
Okay, good. So hopefully we'll hear from them, because I know they had done a lot of work on it. They were just running it by the whole board. Hopefully we'll get that back from them. We had discussed, I think Adam had discussed at last month's meeting, the CCO ordinance, and you addressed it again tonight. Mark had sent one out, sent it to me. I think I forwarded it to Adam
Right.
and Jim and Carol to look over for the ordinance committee. If you guys look at it and want to get together and talk about it, let me know, we can do that. Otherwise, maybe that's something that we can bring to the full board next month. Lastly, I had, in some of my dealings as president of Lake Reality and the lifeguards, I had looked into the new, relatively new fad of electronic cigarettes. In doing a little bit of research on that, I came across an article which actually is in everyone's notebook, section 6, about how New Jersey and in particular some municipalities are dealing with tobacco sales in general, but also electronic cigarettes. The current state law is you have to be 19 to purchase tobacco products. They recently amended that to include nicotine delivery products, which would include electronic cigarettes. What this article outlines is some towns, particularly in Bergen County, have enacted their own ordinances raising the state age of 19 up to 21 for at least that municipality. And coincidentally, just today in the Star Ledger, another article was put out about electronic cigarettes. And they noted in this article that there's a new AMA policy recommending that electronic cigarettes not be sold to anyone under the age of 21, as long-term effects are unknown. They don't technically have carcinogens, but they do have nicotine, which can cause a habit. And there's also a list in this article of some of the towns in New Jersey that have enacted their own ordinances raising the age for both cigarettes and electronic cigarettes to 21, including Englewood, Teaneck, Pagoda, Garfield, Highland Park, Sayreville, Princeton, and East Rutherford. My thought was that perhaps we give some thought ourselves to having an ordinance like this in our town. I know there is a concern with enforcement. There may also be a little bit of pushback. In the article that's in your notebook, they talk about how the organization that represents gas stations, I believe it is, has opposed at different times, has opposed some of these ordinances that municipalities have enacted. So I wanted to bring this up, see what everybody thought about having our own ordinance raising the age of sales from 19 to 21. And before I finish, Mark and I were talking briefly about this before. Most of the laws that I've read, including New Jersey's state law, talk about simply the sale of tobacco products, not the consumption or use. I don't know what the legal reasoning is behind that, but all the ordinances and statute that I've read talk about limiting the sale of tobacco and electronic products to anyone under 19 or 20, whatever the age may be. Maybe we can find out what the reasoning is behind that, but my guess is whatever we enact would be prohibiting sales as opposed to use. So I wanted to throw that out to the council to see if anybody had any thoughts on what's enacting.
What's your thought about enforcement?
I think it's, I think it will be tough. I mean, I don't know if our police are going to spend a lot of time getting out of the car and asking someone for proof of, identity or age. I don't know if the stores in town that sell these products, I mean, I know they'll say.
Who do we have left, Jim, do you know? Isn't it, I think it's Rite Aid and,
Rite Aid,
Blue
gas.
The gas station on 23 South Kinnelon.
yeah, they sell 10
Pathmark, I think,
Luck,
sells cigarettes,
Luck
right?
Oil, Pathmark.
Golf gas.
I mean, my thought is one is who's going to write the tickets for this?
Right.
I think according to this, it's the health department, which are we legally allowed to do that? Second, is you're just gonna hurt the businesses that are in Kinnelon that do sell cigarettes, they're just gonna go to Butler, or they're gonna go to Riverdale.
That's the argument.
I mean,
from the gas
I
station.
personally don't like cigarettes, so we don't sell them in our deli, but, I think the people who do sell it make good money from it. And all it's gonna do is force them to Butler, or force them to Riverdale, it's gonna hurt the businesses, and,
Mhm.
you know, I don't think it's gonna slow the kids down, they're just gonna go somewhere else.
Right.
And as you said, it's selling it, not using it.
Right.
So the cop can't give a kid a ticket for sitting
No, you can
someplace
find out
smoking,
where-
all he
where-
wants.
If he has a legal
You can
right
find out where we got
to,
it.
Mark would probably know, if he has a legal right to smoke at 18,
Yeah, I don't think
can
you-
the town tell you at 21?
No, I think that's why the focus is on sale. So you can regulate sale, but you have to make really fundamental questions. Does it just change the point of purchase to be over the line in
course.
Butler?
Yeah.
I've never known anyone who said, well, I won't drive an extra couple blocks for a cigarette. You know.
No, you're right.
And the other
Walk a
question
mile
is,
for a Terry
yeah,
Tip.
and the other question fundamentally is, do you care to get involved? I mean, whether it's certainly no longer even 18, which is of course legal age. You're making a distinction between 19 and 20 or 21. So the person the audience you're dealing with is at least 19. I can't stand cigarettes. I'm happy to do anything I can to eliminate cigarettes, but you have to make a decision. Is that a policy matter that you're comfortable with? The distinction between 19 and 20 or 19 and 21.
I'm more comfortable with not smoking on borough property, fields, et cetera, versus this, I just think.
Public and quasi-public, right? Isn't that-
Right.
Yeah.
I think it would be more, what's what I'm looking for?
Symbolic.
Symbolic.
Yeah, it's a gesture.
Yeah.
You know, if it's just a gesture and it hurts merchants, maybe you want to think twice about it, but.
We talked about e-cigarettes today at Kinnelon, it's a bunch of sixth graders got called with them the other day and that kind of stuff.
Well, and
So
the
I don't
most
know, it was-
insidious is of course.
But just getting back to the enforcement part, so you actually have to be there when someone's purchasing.
Right.
So you have to have somebody in the store that says.
Well,
"You sold to
what they
under
do is
age."
they send kids into your store, that's what they do with
Tobacco.
tobacco,
Yeah.
they actually do it.
But that's ABC, right? Can you do it locally or?
Used to do
Oh, I don't
beer.
know, I mean,
But that's how they do it, that's how they do.
I just think
Enforcement,
it's-
whether or not enforcement really happens very much, you know, who knows? But
Right.
the
It's
question
interesting
is,
that the Board of Health can suspend your food license and everything for retail food places, but I just think we're,
I think there's other ordinances
Way
on
out
the
of our
book that need some more beefing
I think
up,
so.
and
I think that's the
More
consensus.
governmental
Yeah.
restrictions, do you think we need?
you know, some 20-year-old comes home from Iraq and you can't buy a pack of
Can't buy a pack of
cigarettes.
cigarettes?
You gotta go to Butler to buy cigarettes.
That's why they lowered the
You know?
drinking age in '72, because they were
Yes.
drafting us, guys Dan's age and my age. But Dan got drafted, but he couldn't buy a beer.
Right.
But he could drop him in the jungle with a
Couldn't
gun.
vote either.
Couldn't vote.
Well, that was the real.
That was the real thing, right.
Right, so
Can't
I
vote,
guess the
but you can
consensus
fight.
seems no. So, okay, as long as we have the conversation.
We did work on another ordinance, I don't know if, just to go through it quickly. Two towns I represent have introduced Craigslist ordinances. And the purpose of these ordinances is really internet sales ordinances. If a person in your municipality sells something on the internet, TV set, and gets a call and someone's gonna come to their home to purchase the TV set, sometimes that's a pretext for theft or violence or worse. It's just never a good situation, and you could see how it could go very badly, that someone just calls your house or your wife and says, oh, I want to buy the TV, I'll be right over, and, you know, it's just not good. These municipalities, what they're doing is they're allowing that exchange or transfer to take place either in Borough Hall property or actually in the Borough Hall, or if you like, accompanied by a police officer. I'm getting this really from police chiefs who regard it as an excellent community policing tool. It's a nice thing to do, it keeps the public safe, also gives them a chance to interact with members of the public, it gives them a chance maybe to see somebody who might have come from out of town or maybe some long distance away and
run his plate.
maybe have an idea of who they are or why they're in town. But it's certainly, it seems much better than some guy driving up to somebody's house in the woods to exchange cash for merchandise. So, yeah, it just seems
And the
really
only thing I
dangerous.
did was I asked Karen to share it with Chief
Of course,
Force
the
to
chief.
see if, you know, he thought it had some value to it.
It's just a good chance for the police to meet people,
Did he see it yet, or?
I don't
No,
think so.
I haven't heard, I
Yeah,
didn't
good.
get them.
But it's, and if you don't want
I
to
read
do
it,
it, you don't
it
have
looks
to.
interesting.
But it was
You're not putting any
police chief.
restrictions on Craigslist, you're just saying
No.
you have the ability
They
to
can
come
use
here.
Do your
the
transaction
lobby at
here in
the
a
police
public
department,
place.
or they can do it in the parking lot.
And if you'd like a police officer to come out and say hello while you
I
do
like
it,
that.
no problem. And the chiefs seem to love it because it's a chance for them to really interact with the public, so.
Okay, so the chief will take a review and get back to us. Okay.
That's on that resolution, right?
That's an ordinance as well. Craigslist is an ordinance.
Resolution.
You captured it? Then maybe it is just a resolution. Let me see what format we sent it. Yep, just a resolution. So it's even easier.
Okay.
Anything else, Chris?
I'm sorry, I'm done, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Now moving on to hearing from the public. Does
Yeah, quick
anyone from the
question.
public wish to hear? Please state
Randy
your...
Charles, longtime resident. Just a thought, Glenn and myself went through it decades ago with the old owners of Pathmark, trying to get them to maintain the hydrants.
There's only one.
With this with the refund coming back to the new owners of B-Town, is there a way we can get the hydrants and some stuff checked? Just to make sure we got everything up to snuff down there?
It's a good idea. I know that the hydrant next to
Because we've
what
been
was
through, we
the
went through,
cinema
sometimes
is
we
dead.
hooked up and the hydrants didn't work.
You can't use a performance bond for that purpose unless it was posted for the fire hydrants.
Right.
So it wouldn't be for general maintenance,
No.
upkeep of the property?
No, no. It's not a slush fund. It's not just general money. It was posted for the performance of specific site improvements. Now, if one of those was fire hydrants, you got a good one there.
Well, I'm just asking, I mean,
If it wasn't, no, you can't just use it.
Good look, can we look? Can we find out?
Yeah, that would be something Tom Barati would do. He was the guy who wrote the,
Well, didn't he already say everything's been
well,
done?
he already said everything's been done, but he may not be aware that there's a problem
I'm
with the
just
fire
asking.
hydrant.
Yeah, no, it was a
That's
good
all, I'm
point,
just
but-
asking.
You can't
Because
just-
we have a new owner.
What about inspection of fire hydrants, do we do that? Or is-
I sent a letter, two things. I think I spoke to Bob Westdyke, I was
Right.
hooked up with him. I sent a letter to Face and Lights Water attaching, I believe, the code, which Bob was kind enough to send me.
Right.
And then I thought Bob was gonna look into it a little
Yeah,
further.
he sent an email back that he spoke to them, and they say that they have the maintenance records, and I don't think he got to see them yet.
Correct, I asked for the maintenance records, and then Bob must have gone personally and asked for them. That we haven't seen.
I mean, something like down in Meadtown, is there a way for us to inspect hydrants?
You would send the fire truck down and hook it up.
So I can see what happens?
Make sure it works.
I mean, the timing's.
But you
the
can't make them
timing
do
now.
anything with that money.
Right.
No, but you can make them repair that hydrant if they
Absolutely.
own it, it doesn't
Sure,
work.
absolutely. You can do that anytime, yeah, it should.
But I don't think you guys do that, do you? Do you inspect hydrants?
Yeah, they go around and see what works and what doesn't
What
work.
can open, what's not open.
Give them a little, go to Meadtown, check it out?
Yeah.
Everybody stand back,
No,
No.
it's just a complicated set of where the water comes from. I know on the high side of Cakeout, there's a hydrant that's off of one leg of it, and then there's the lower side of Cakeout, where you go in the back road to the to Meadtown is another part of the Kinnelon system. And then there was another hydrant that's over by the sports club, which is coming off the Butler system. And there's a Butler hydrant, which is different threads. And then their hydrant that was next to the right of the cinema, looking at the cinema, I hooked up to that once, just recently actually, because there's a Siamese directly across from it. And I just thought, let me clear it out and flush it before I hook up, and there was nothing there.
There was no-
And it was red, and it's not supposed to be red if it doesn't work. It's supposed to be either black, garbage bagged, or there's a ring that says this is out of service. So I believe at this point it's bagged. But yeah, that we found while we had a fire going on in the eave in the front. I think it was over. No, it was on the jeweler's end up inside.
I'll ask Karen to reach out to Mr. Barati to make sure that he is aware of the fact that some of the connects there should have been tested and good to go. Randall, anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Anyone else from the public wish to be heard this evening? Hearing none, we'll close to the public and move on to the payment of bills. Please review the list that's in the handout, and if you have questions, please refer to Jen Stillman
Jennifer Stillman.
before next week's regular meeting. Under the consent agenda, we've taken action on Burgess. Mark has had some correspondence with Kelly, Mr. Kelly from the PRVSA, I believe, regarding, or it came to the borough asking for just a resolution of support of the PRSB sale of excess sewer, so that's on here. We're correcting the qualifying purchasing agent, and the rest appears to be perfunctory and in course of regular business. There is one thing noteworthy on the liquor licenses. Mike and Angelo's Park Inn are the only ones that we've verified that actually have completed their application. So we're going to have problems, of course, with our computers. So we'll leave them on with the intent of hopefully making sure that the applications are put forth properly. Any questions about the consent agenda?
On the 615, the salaries.
Right.
You have written down the recreation summer rec staff. And it's 10th, 11th, 12th grade.
Was someone outside the scales, is that what we have to do? Someone was outside the particular range?
You're below minimum wage, so it's got to go at least the minimum wage.
It wasn't on a real?
Okay, Jim's pointed out that that range is below minimum wage, so if we...
Where?
Summer
The
staff.
$7.50, $8, $8.38.
Gotta be 8.25,
Linda got those off
8.39.
of Melanie.
Okay, well, $8.38 is minimum wage. So
8:38,
8.30,
okay.
8.38 or 8.39?
I would do $8.38 for 10th, and do $8.88 for 11th,
Okay,
and then $9.26. All I did was put the dollar values, I just added it to,
9:26 to 12, okay.
and then I saw that somewhere else on I don't think that matters, but the
Library page is low too.
Yeah.
So just adjust anything on the low end of those scales to minimum wage.
8.38.
$8.38 is minimum.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Chef
Chef Affair, that's $500 is Greg Cassar's business, he had a security
It's a
deposit.
security deposit.
Wow.
Assuming that it's clean, it's done, it's
Yeah.
photographed, it's documented, if
Yep.
it's done, he deserves it back.
Nothing else on consent? If not, old business, we have the municipal budget adoption. New business, we have introduction of ordinance to salary ranges, which we just went over, and we have a click it or ticket grant. We've got payment of the school tax, and if there's nothing else on the agenda, we are now going to go into closed session.
If that's the case, Mayor, a motion would be in order that would affirm the fact that we're going into closed session for approximately 1.5 hours to discuss two matters of litigation, that being Hopkins and Dixon, and also discussing employee benefits and collective bargaining. There may or may not be action taken when we emerge from closed session, but we will certainly emerge and briefly come back into open for the purpose of adjourning the meeting. If that's acceptable to everyone,
Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion to
So moved.
please go into close based upon the attorney's framing? I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? We are in close. You still have to go back in, so we're not going to take any action on that until you get a change. You're assuming, but.
Okay, put it off. I mean, the only thing you understand, I'm putting off conference, I had a conference with the judge today.
Right.
Anyone else would have been happy to go and charge for it, to tell the judge, well, I'm meeting with the council tonight. But I didn't, and I don't want to think like that. I assume we're gonna, maybe we can put something on for next week, a resolution approving the settlement for next week.
Yep.
I've already got the judge on my butt, like, when are you guys coming back in? I had to talk about 3 words, Judge, I can't come back and see you. It doesn't fly. Cliff laughs because it doesn't fly.
Okay, anything else? We did not take action during close, so there's no other action, business to come before the council. Ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Please. Second, please. All in favor?
That was a marathon.